Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today we continue with the compilation videos which are aimed at people who are working or people who are driving or people who just have a heck of a lot of time and want something on in the background. Today we're gonna jump into some Tales from Tech Support. Our first story today comes to us from Hangman Matt. The time I would have gotten fired if I hadn't already resigned. Let's jump right in. This is a long one filled with a user being an annoying person and me being petty as hell. So at my last job, I gave a 2-month notice because my old boss retired, senior tech got promoted, and let the power go to his head. About 3 weeks from my last day, some fun started with an always problem employee. For context, when the employee, who lives in the Midwest USA, started, he was given essentially a dumb terminal with decent specs, Windows 10, and a VPN to connect to a tower in the building using remote desktop. Towards the end of my tenure there, we started standardizing the equipment that the company used and encrypting drives. This meant we had to send him another work-from-home terminal with all the changes, standardization, and encryption. It had a slower processor, but was more than enough for what it had to do. This user was always causing trouble, complaining, berating our IT staff, to the point we had to get HR involved. If anyone wants more stories about this guy, I'm more than happy to share. About 90% are involving him complaining about lag that was either self-inflicted or something we couldn't fix. I sent him the new computer with a letter inside, requesting he send back the old computer once he receives and sets up this new one. I also asked that he email us the tracking number for his old tower. I got an email from UPS a few days after shipping it that it was delivered. I give him 2 days and haven't heard from him. I shoot him an email over requesting he sends us back the old computer. Hello user, I'm aware that you received your replacement computer a couple days ago. Please get the new one set up and return the old one to us at your earliest convenience. Thank you, OP. User emailed back. Hello, I have received the tower you sent, however, I'm confused. I googled the specs on it and they're significantly worse than my current computer. Why did you send this to me? I'm sorry, the specs don't exactly matter. Its only purpose is to connect to a VPN and then remote desktop. It doesn't need a powerful processor. We've also already distributed about 50 of these computers and haven't gotten any complaints. This is our new standard. Please get it hooked up and mail us back the old one at your earliest convenience. A few hours go by and I get a call from him. I set up the new computer. My password isn't working. The password is in the paperwork in the box. Why did you change my password? We didn't change it. This is a new machine. It's our temp password. Set it to whatever you like. Okay, I'm in. Did my VPN get moved? Your VPN is there. Same method to connect as before. Okay, I'll call you if I have any issues. The user hangs up and I think this is the end, but far from it. Another day or two passes and still no tracking number from the user. I send another email requesting he send the old computer back. A few more days go by. I check TeamViewer because something tells me something's up. Sure as crap, he's using his old computer. At this point, I'm annoyed. 2 years of dealing with him and the fact I'm gone in 2 weeks took over. I sent one last email. Hello user, I noticed you plugged your old computer back in and are using it instead of your new one. I have requested that you send back the old tower multiple times, and you have failed to follow my instructions. Since you are going to continue using your old computer, and I am aware the new one is functional, I will be terminating your old VPN connection in 30 minutes. This will render your old tower useless. Please send the old tower back to us at your earliest convenience so it can be repurposed. Thank you, OP. I set a timer on my phone for 30 minutes. At the end of it, I checked that he was still using his old computer, checked that he saw my email, he read it and disregarded it, then terminated his VPN while he was still working. About 2 hours later, I get an email from him asking who my supervisor was. I deleted it. About 20 minutes after that, my boss's phone rings. I wonder who that could be. This is the conversation as I heard it. Hello user. Yes. Okay. Is the new tower working? Okay. Yes. Well, he's leaving soon anyways. Yes. Okay. All right, I'll talk to him. Goodbye. Matt, please come in here. Why did you kill user's VPN while he was working? I proceed to explain that I asked multiple times both in email and over the phone that he return his old tower once the new one worked. It worked. I confirmed it did, yet he unplugged it and set the old one back up. I have dealt with this butthole for 2 years, and I'm done with his crap. I sent him a warning, which he read and disregarded, so now his old VPN is gone. I understand why you did what you did, and I agree that you did the right thing. However, you should have talked to me first. Now he's pissed. I'm in hot water, and user is demanding I give you disciplinary action. What are you gonna do? Fire me? I can call my new job and tell them I can start earlier. No, you're leaving in a week and a half. Just please keep your frustration with users and me under control. I'll deal with him from now on, and we will just call this a verbal warning. Looking back on it, I could have probably gotten away with more petty crap if I really wanted, but didn't want to leave a Category 5 crap storm in my wake as I left because there were people I liked who would have had to clean it up. Now I work with way more chill people, and am making about $20,000 more. Well, it turns out OP has written a part 2, so we're going to jump into that one right away. This one is Tales of an Annoying Employee Part 2. Let's jump right in. This is another story from this user as people requested more, and I have more, so we will call this Part 2, but this is the first issue with him. I dealt with him for 2 years, and he put in a lot of tickets. I linked my original post below. Context: this user started working for us around the end of 2018. He lived in the Midwest in a major city. He would be connecting via VPN tunnel to our office on the East Coast, then using remote desktop to get to a physical machine in our back room set up for him and only him. All our remote employees were using a similar setup. He was one of the first people we issued a work-from-home computer set up with Windows 10. We were still trying to figure out the bugs, quirks, lockdown commands, group policy, etc. We really dragged our feet on the move from Windows 7. When we issued work-from-home computers, they were locked down to where you couldn't even open Calculator. This being Windows 10, however, we hadn't figured out the proper ways of locking it down, so the early Windows 10 work-from-home PCs were almost out of the box. Our VPN was an open VPN setup running off 2 servers on 2 different internet runs from 2 different companies. This meant if one ISP went down for any reason, we still had internet and a VPN server that everyone could fall onto and keep working. When the user started, we expected some complaints or issues, and we would work through them together. Windows 10 was new for us too. This user, however, was going to be the bane of my existence for the next 2 years. This is the story of the first of many issues unrelated to Windows 10. The ticket arrived from user, "Hello, I'm experiencing some lag issues. Can you guys help?" Sure, what kind of lag do you mean? Input lag, typing and then the character showing up a second or two later, or general slowness, clicking on a link and just getting a loading circle? Both? Okay, let me connect in to see what's going on. I proceed to connect in via TeamViewer and see that the issues he's describing are so minor, it's like half a second input delay, and the wait after clicking a link is maybe a second or two. Standard for a general office computer, and the slight input lag is to be expected when using a VPN tunnel over 1,500 miles. It's not going to be instant, but close enough to work effectively. I explain this to the user. He understands, ticket closed, simple. 2 days later, I'm experiencing lag issues. I spoke with OP a couple days ago, and he failed to fix them. Can someone else please help me? My boss then looks over her desk. OP, why is the user saying you didn't help him? Read the ticket from yesterday, number 1234. Call him and see what you can do. Nothing I can do, but if you want me to remind him of what I told him before, then sure. Calls user, "Hello, this is OP. I see you put in another ticket for the same issue. Has it gotten worse?" "Oh, I asked to speak to someone else, but yes, it's gotten worse. I can't work. This is so bad." Okay, connects via TeamViewer. Please show me what you're talking about. User starts working and demonstrates the same lag as before, minimal and perfectly adequate to do his job. See, it's so bad I can't work. I'm sorry, but what you're showing me is nothing out of the ordinary. The input lag is minimal, but to be expected. You're on a VPN tunnel 1,500 miles away, using remote desktop to connect to a computer here. It's not instant. The signal has to be transmitted from you out here, the computer does what you're asking it to do, then the picture is transmitted back to you 1,500 miles away. The fact that you're experiencing this is normal and there's nothing we can do to fix it. Is there anything else I can help you with? No. Click. Okay, hang up on me. Whatever. Closes ticket. Maybe now it's the end of this. I mean, seriously, it's not that hard to understand, is it? The rest of the week, nothing. Monday morning. Hello, I'm still experiencing lag issue. I've spoken with OP twice and would like to speak with someone else as he is refusing to fix my problem. Bear in mind, our IT department consists of 3 people total. Me, our senior tech, and our boss. All 3 of us sit right next to each other, and the 2 of them heard my second conversation with the user and are aware at this point that he's being a pain. Okay, senior tech, do you want to call the user or should I? OP has dealt with him twice and there's no issue. You do it. If he's as bad as OP says, maybe the IT manager will shut him up. Hello, user. What seems to be the problem? Okay, let me connect to see the issue. Okay, show me. I don't see an issue. You're on a VPN tunnel 1,500 miles away. I am the IT manager for the company. How can I help you? I'm sorry, but there's no issue and therefore nothing we can do to fix it. At this point, you have submitted 3 tickets about the same issue that can't be fixed. The only way to fix it would be for me to fly out there and run a 1,500-mile cable directly from you to us. So if you're willing to pay for that to happen, then sure, I can fix it. Okay, have a nice day. Goodbye. Click. Okay, that should be the last of that issue. It wasn't. As was mentioned down in the comments for this one, there was a simple way to solve this one with a message back. It would say, hello, user's boss. Hi, this is IT manager. User has submitted 3 tickets regarding a non-issue related to working remotely. Please let him know if he keeps submitting tickets for this non-issue, we will have to notify HR that this employee is unfit for remote work and should either be terminated or made to come to the office 1,500 miles away every day for their shift. Thank you. In the end though, it seems to me like the user just didn't want to work and they were blaming their problems on IT. I'd love to know what you guys think though, comment down below. Our next story today comes to us from Van City Ace. User mad for mixing up Chrome and Explorer, then tries to BS and pull a Karen. Let's jump right in. Background: I work in finance and risk management, and we operate on a queue system for when third parties would need approvals and reviews on certain risks. Third party would enter all the data needed for us to review into our company website. There is also a separate phone queue for third parties who need assistance with using our website, as well as plenty of guides and videos, as well as our risk appetite. I also used to be on the assistance side and am able to troubleshoot and fix most issues, as some third parties end up calling the risk phone queue. So instead of just transferring the caller around, I would just get the call done there whenever possible. Plus, we are currently short-staffed due to the summer vacations. Hi, I'm trying to see what the effects would be to make some changes to an account. Okay, what's stopping you from doing this change in the site? I tried, but it's not working. Alright, try doing it again, and I'll stay on the line to guide you. Third party proceeds to try. It keeps giving me an error, complete company name. Please ensure you are using Internet Explorer. I am, but it seems to not be working. You're on the client screen? Yes. What happens when you press next? Nothing happens. Are you using Internet Explorer? Yes, now getting annoyed. Are you sure? Yes, we're using the latest version of Chrome. The question was if you're using Internet Explorer. Chrome is Google Chrome, completely different from Internet Explorer. Our site only works with Internet Explorer. The buttons and scripts will not work on other browsers. Okay, let me try this again. Then, within 2 or 3 seconds, okay, I'm trying it, but it's not working. I sense BS. Are you sure you're using Internet Explorer? What's your name? My name is OP, my manager is District Manager, and our call started at this time. Now, are you able to confirm you're using Internet Explorer? Because as I've stated, our site only works with Internet Explorer. Never mind, I'll try this myself. Third party hangs up. The sensing BS part is me doubting someone is able to do the following within seconds. Close Chrome, open Internet Explorer, go to our website and log in, navigate to the accounts page, search for the account, enter into the account, and then go to where the changes need to be done. I've also dealt with this third party in the past, and this third party likes to use years of experience in the industry as a reason for knowing everything, and is always right, and will ask to speak to the manager if they don't get their way. I get that you can open the wrong browser by mistake, that's fine. What annoyed me was the BS attempt and then the Karen move when I'm trying to help. Yes, I'm pretty sure anybody that's worked in tech support ever and knows these kind of people. They call in for help, but then they refuse to follow any of the steps you're giving them. You just want to ask them, if you know so much, why did you even call in the first place? But unfortunately, we're not allowed to do that. Our next story today comes to us from Slice Double. You are too late, all is done. Get your junk. Let's jump right in. Backstory: I work as an executive systems administrator in a large non-profit organization. I'm pretty much the only IT guy in the whole organization and always pondered why the heck they made me executive. Not important now, but later. Anywho, we got all kinds of business stirring and we buyed this crazy huge recycling center from our city who just wanted to get rid of it. Maybe they just don't want to administrate it anymore. Our director and board instantly drop an offer to buy the recycling business, and offer goes through and deal is struck. Yay, more work for me, yada. So deal is done at November 2019 and business will move into our lap at January 2020. I get a call from my director that there's a meeting happening just before Christmas about tech needed there. Okay. Meeting is with our director, office manager, wages and HR, accountant, me, and new manager from that recycling center. We talk about what they got now and what they are going to need. Some workstations, cashier systems, cell phones, tablets, basic stuff. Then new manager asks about the internet. Well, they got a line from local operator and that line goes away soon. Business will transfer to us in January and we need to have ours there by the end of February. So 2 whole months to do the tech switch. I'm confident that this is pretty easy. I get an amount of stuff we need and drop our order to our tech supplier and ask that all the stuff is delivered straight to the recycling center so I don't have to haul all that stuff from the other side of the city where our main office is. I only wanted the server hardware to my office so I could prep them there before Christmas. And no, they did not recycle new computers and printers I got for them. That would have been hilarious. I have never visited that place and I have no idea about it. I tell this new manager that I want to drop by first thing in January to check the place and need to see the main network drawings. He says that there is no drawings. The recycling center is in some kinda old factory or something, and also there are multiple other businesses there, from small engine repair shops to lunch and restaurant to metal ship and God knows what. Place is huge. There are several hundred rooms there. Place has been under renovations for decades, and whenever someone rents some space from there and wants new walls to be done or old down or whatever, the owner of the building happily complies. So now I have a little concern. January comes and right after my Christmas vacation, I head straight to the recycling center that is now officially ours. And behold, it is huge, just like our manager told me. The customer side is just humongous and the storage area is even bigger. I head to a door that says staff only, as I assume it's the office. It is, and I look for the manager. He thanks me for the new computers that arrived before Christmas and are stored at the office storage, and has many notes that these are not for sale or recycling. Yeah, they had incidents where 2 eager employees have sold other employees' personal items, like bikes and stuff. Haha, nice place. I took my notebook, a paper one, and a pen and asked for a tour. I want to see the premises, every office, workspace, and scout the LAN sockets first that I can write it all down. Then, I want to see all network cross-sections there is. Well, crap. There is over a dozen cross-sections all over the building. And best part is that the labels make no sense. It's like there's been multiple networks in the past, and that new ones have just been dumped over the old ones. I mean, cable bundles that are thick as a grown man, a literal mess. But I'm lucky, as there is still all the tech that is property of our city. I only need to look at every cross-section cabinet that has city property routers, and then look at the cable labels and refer them to office network sockets. Easy peasy. Takes time, but I should be done in a day or two. And I was right. There were switches in 4 cabinets only, and all the socket labels matched, so I took photos and write it all down. And then I started to install our stuff. First network, I just put out switches into cabinets along with city property, as there was more than enough space there. Then I routed our switches to the free network sockets at the offices. Next, I called my contact at the local ISP and asked my options about the internet line. He told me that there is already fiber there, so we can either get a line from the ISP or we can contact the landlord who owns the building and use their solution. Apparently, the owner rents fiber connections to the resident businesses there, and it's 100% legal and fine. Well, not rent, but it's included to the rent of the premises. So I take the owner's solution as it might take too long for the ISP to get the line open. I know that they can be a bit slow sometimes, and I only got time until the end of next month. I want this to be done. So I call the owner of the building and we get an agreement, and I install our router to their main cross-section cabinet that happens to be in the recycle center premises in an hour after calling him. Just superb service. I go to one of the offices, pull my laptop, hook it to the free network socket, and yes, we got internet, and connect to the router and start configuring it. After I'm done, I tell the manager that I'll be back tomorrow and install the new workstations. They all got big desks, so new workstations can be there parallel to the old ones that are going to be taken away soon. So it took 2 days to scout the place, set up a network and new workstations for all. As servers were already prepped, it took less than an hour to get AD up with file and print server, and I was about done. I also set up a Wi-Fi that covers the whole area of the recycling center. All that was left was the cashier systems. That was a little harder, as everybody was almost arguing what they want and what they need. I decided to let them sort it out and contact me when they're done, as long as it's settled before the end of January so we have time to get everything. Also, I got an interesting call from a major computer brand that was supplying our city their tech, and this dude with nasal sound started the convo on the phone like this. Is this OP? I was told that you were to be contacted regarding tech swap at the recycling center. I am soon starting to gather a team of experts to make the swap. I just thought that for a moment in my mind, team of experts to haul 4 switches, 1 router, and 4 workstations away? WTF? Okay, what time frame do you have in mind? Well, the tech is needed to remove there by the end of February, but I'm not sure we can get the team together that soon, so it might go to the end of March. Okay, take your time. Anything else? No, I just wanted to inform this to you. Thank you, be in touch. Now, this was in the first week of January, right after the new year. I already set up our network, installed new workstations, got the servers, and employees are already using their new computers for work. Next week, I disconnect all the property of computer brand stuff and pile them into office storage to free some space for the workers. They don't need to have workstations on their desks anyway. So January goes by, it's now February, hell is frozen, it's so cold here. We're talking about minus 30 degrees Celsius. My car is like, laugh out loud, nope, every morning. And I'm so tired all the time as I haven't seen the sun for a few months now. I go to the office and call up a meeting regarding the cashier systems at the recycling center. Well, of course, they have only been arguing about it and did not come up with a conclusion. So I take the control and say, yeah, you get iZettle for now. We have to put up something, and we use iZettle here at our cafeteria and restaurant, and it should bend to your needs. There's a few objections from recycle center cashiers, but I keep my stand behind this. I order a couple of full sets of iZettle stuff, iPads, stands for iPads, card readers, receipt printers, etc. I make the needed accounts, and we go through the items they need in there. Took a week, done. Now I disconnect the old cashier machines, card readers, etc. and put them to another pile to the office storage. All goes fine, and then it's business as usual. February goes by and we are in late March when I get the call. Hi, my team is ready for the swap. Is next week okay for you? We should arrive on site about 9 in the morning Monday. Sure thing, see you on Monday. Okay then, bye. I head to the recycling center on Monday, park my car and go inside. I check the old junk is still at the office storage and no one has sold them off to the recycling where stuff will be torn into pieces and then sorted by materials. Nope, all there. Clock is almost 10 when the experts arrive. Holy crap. I know that a team of experts is pretty overkill to get a few old computers and network switches, but a dozen guys, half of them in suits. I meet them up at the lobby. They look around and ask me, where can we find OP? I can hear the nasal sound from his voice. This is the same guy I talked to on the phone. I say, I'm OP. Okay, they look at me, but then shrug their shoulders. I would like to point out that I was nerdy looking fellow back in my days with a short, clean haircut, hoodies and blue jeans and beige chinos and skate shoes. Now I got my golden long hair that reaches my shoulders, a beard, I wear mostly skinny black jeans, and in winter, also old black combat boots that have seen better days. I have my leather biker jacket, and under it thick wool shirt, black one that has text Doom written in white on it. So I don't look like your average executive systems administrator. So they say, we thought there would be a professional here to meet us. I tell them, yeah, I'm professional, believe me. This way, gents. I take them to the office storage and point to the 2 piles of junk. Not literal piles, all were neatly put in place as we didn't want to break them. There's your stuff, you are welcome. Do you need a card or something? The suits and their entourage, the tech experts possibly, went silent for a moment. What is this? We were supposed to make a tech swap, and we're here to map and plan to process. Why is our stuff here? The guy in suit asks. Well, we had to get our systems operational before the end of February, you know. Then City finally shuts down the internet here, and also shuts down the AD and everything. So I put our stuff operational at the start of January. Why wait? So here we are now at the end of March. Is February before or after March? I'll give you a hint. Look to the floor where your stuff is. This is completely unprofessional. You had no authority to disconnect and remove our stuff. I will report this to your supervisor. Where is your manager? Suit rants. I had every given right, by the way. I'm like, laugh out loud, did he just say that? Yeah, my manager would be Executive Director Manly name. No, I mean your manager, not the head honcho. Yeah, that would be the head honcho, Director Manly name. He looks at me in disbelief. Oh, these corporate guys. No wonder Johnny Silverhand hates them. And you are, he mumbles. I'm another Manly name, Executive Systems Administrator here. You know what is truly unprofessional, I ask. Dude is still pissed. I can see that from his face. Rest of his bunch are silent and just stare at the stuff on the floor. It's very unprofessional to spend almost 3 months to gather a team of experts to haul a couple of computers. Also take note that all of this stuff was supposed to be out of here a month ago. Tech swap was supposed to be done a month ago. I'm sorry, that is not unprofessional. It's just incompetent. There are carts you can borrow at the lobby. Have a nice day. And I left back to my office. Funny thing, I never heard of them again. No complaints, nothing. Weird, right? As was mentioned in the comments down below, I think the tactic that was put into play here was they were going to try and gather a large team, drag things out, and then assist you with the new install and send you a massive bill in the process. You did the right thing by just directing them to the pile of their crap and getting out of the way. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our next story today comes to us from This Is Sandwich. Oh, that's been broken ever since we got it. Let's jump right in. First, some background. I work in a research and development laboratory as a team of 2 where we use a number of different specialized pieces of equipment, including data acquisition systems, high-speed cameras, electric pulse and function generators, and temperature chambers. Our IT people don't support this equipment, so if something goes down, we're on our own. I've quickly learned the value of RTFM. We have a sister site that does mostly production work. Their test department does real simple stuff with a smaller range of equipment following well-established procedures, although some steps are unwritten. As such, the tech in that department has generally not needed to be technically savvy, and so the man who was in that position, we'll call him Jim for no particular reason, put little to no effort to actually understand the equipment he was using. Jim's 2 solutions to problems were either to give up and ignore it, or call us if it was something he couldn't ignore. This meant our sister site accumulated a lot of broken equipment. To be fair to Jim, a decent amount was actually broken, as we have come to expect given we're testing explosives, but there were times when things just needed a little bit of TLC or buttons pressed in the right order. Jim recently retired, and his replacement, Mark, got the bare minimum in terms of training from Jim, and now Mark has basically been thrown into the deep end. Fortunately, Mark seems to be up to the task, and at the very least, was shown the things that only exist as tribal knowledge rather than being written down and documented. A few weeks ago, I was at our sister site to do some testing we couldn't do at my home site. Mark is helping out as a training opportunity, and his own testing is dead in the water. because the guy he's been working with, who has the special license we need to do the testing, is in vacation, and Mark doesn't have one yet. Well, good news. I have this special license, and it looks like my testing is going to finish early. Let's prep the test samples and get Mark moving on his stuff because it's holding up production. It's also a good opportunity for me to see what they actually do for testing here since I never seen it and their written procedure sucks. Prep involves conditioning some samples at an elevated temperature, easy enough as both sites have a couple of temperature chambers for this. We go where they keep these chambers, the big one's already in use on something. Then the following paraphrased conversation happens. Oh, I guess we can't test. What? Why? Someone else is using the oven. Points to the other chamber sitting dormant. What about this one? Starts punching in our target temperature of 250 Fahrenheit. Oh, that? It's been broken ever since we got it. Broken how? Suspicious that a $10,000 plus piece of equipment has never worked. It won't stay at temp. Taking a closer look, looks like it's throwing an alarm. Yeah, Jim couldn't figure out how to stop it, so he just silenced it. Tapping buttons on the limit control panel. Do you guys have the manual? I don't think so. Alright, let's find one. And we're off to Google. A few minutes and a manual is printing. I send Mark to grab it while I go back to the oven to see if I can figure out what the issue is. This chamber being new, its control panel and limit control panel are different from what we've got at my home site. Fumbling through the menu, I figure out the alarm is for a limit being exceeded, and therefore power to the heating element is cut off. I fumble my way to see the limits are set to 300 and -10. Okay, even if that was in Celsius, we should be well within that. WTF. Mark comes in with the manual. As I'm rifling through, I realize this manual is for a temperature controller with the same model number and not a limiter. Back to Google, model number limit goes into the search bar. Bingo. I do a quick skim to make sure I have the right thing before I print off another 100-page document. Then I come to a realization. I sit up and look at the wall in the direction the chamber is in. I think I figured it out. Mark and I head over and I start tapping away at a panel. Yep, someone, Jim, mixed up the low and high end limits so the chamber would throw alarms and not work if the temperature was between -10 Fahrenheit and 300 Fahrenheit, which it always would be. 30 seconds later, we had a second fully functional temperature chamber and testing could continue. I then proceeded to watch in horror as I find out this test the company has been doing for decades is unreliable, a bit unsafe, incredibly unscientific, and takes longer than it has any right to. But that's a tale for a different subreddit, probably. It's kinda scary thinking that a lot of the big systems in important places, like hospitals and whatnot, use equipment that could be serviced by people like this. This story does remind me though, when somebody asks you a question and you don't know the answer, but you know it's a simple answer, hey, let me Google that for you. Our next story today comes to us from Joe Don Fan, the largest magnet in the world. Let's jump right in. I did field work in the early 90s. Back then, some data centers had VAX machines, dumb terminals, and reel-to-reel backups. Think 1960s era stock footage of computers and big disks spinning around, those things. Those devices were old and slow and breaking down and obsolete, so a lot of them were replaced in the 1990s. My company sold and installed the replacement tape drives. This customer was porting old backups to the new backup drives. They had been one of the first adopters of computer technology back in the day and had backups going back, I kid you not, to the late 1960s. The oldest of these backups, early mid-70s if memory serves, might or might not port over. Even though it was out of our scope, the customer asked if our company could figure out what was going on. I, as the installing tech, did the preliminary checking, which consisted of learning how their old drives worked. It was data gathering for the guys who probably knew how this old stuff worked. This was the first and last time I had ever seen one of these old tape drives in use. The upper level techs did some environmental checks, didn't think their storage was any issue. It was in an old, giant, 100-plus-year-old safe from a defunct bank, tested the drives as best they could, and couldn't find an issue with them. We told them we couldn't figure out what was wrong, and the customer thanked us for trying. Why did they need these old backups some 25 to 30 years later? This customer was super giant conglomerate that you've heard of, and they probably still have legal battles being fought from the 1960s. That is my best guess, and I assure you it's only a guess, but it's the only possible reason I could think of. Fast forward 5 or 6 years, I no longer work for my previous employer and I was watching some TV. No idea what the show was, but it had something to do with magnetism, and I watched as they magnetized a rebar by using the Earth's magnetic field. The rebar was pointed at the ground at about a 45-degree angle, oriented north to south, then struck with a hammer a half dozen or so times. The now slightly magnetized rebar picked up some very small paper clips. I flashed back to that customer and their very old, very constructed of iron mag tape storage safe, and I was darn near blinded by the light bulb going off over my head. I had to know. At work the next day during lunch, I cold called the local office of Supergiant Conglomerate and asked for the IT department. I got the local help desk and started by explaining, I did a service call there about 6 or 7 years ago on some tape drives. I know this is really weird, but is there anyone still there who might remember how you guys couldn't port over reel-to-reel backups to the new drives? What are you talking about? The tech on the phone asked, reasonably. I gave the tech the story above without the TV show, and also asked if they still have the old safe in the data center in the basement. I think it was that bit of info that got me a, let me get your phone number and I'll ask around. I thought that was the end of it, but a couple of hours later my phone rang. It was one of the admins from Supergiant Conglomerate calling me back. He was one of the desk side grunts at the time my old company investigated the issue. He was still with the company, but had kept going to school, got his netware certs, and was now an admin. And he remembered the tape drive issue. I think I remember you, he said. Were you the guy who installed the new drives? I said I was, but I no longer work for that company, but I think I know what's wrong. You've been thinking about this for 5 years, he asked, laughing. No, but something reminded me about it last night, and, I'd just like to have this checked out. It would certainly explain everything. I have a test in mind. It's fast and painless, and should only take about as long as it takes to open and close the door to that safe. He asked for details, and I told him, that safe is made of iron, right? I remember how everyone liked it because it was over 100 years old and could probably withstand a nuclear blast, but it's still made of iron. And for 100 years, it's been sitting on a big magnet. He was silent for a moment, then said, I don't follow you. You know, if you leave a paperclip on a magnet, the paperclip becomes magnetized. Well, that safe has been sitting around on the Earth for over 100 years, and the Earth is a magnet, he finished. Oh wow. Pause. What's your test? I suggested he get a small paperclip, make sure it isn't magnetized, then take it to the safe, open it up, and see if they could hang the paperclip to the top of the safe from the inside. He told me he'd call me back in 10 minutes. About 8 minutes later, my phone rang. That paperclip is still hanging in that safe. I guess we need new storage. Thanks for your help. And I think I could hear the faint sounds of people frantically removing tapes from a safe behind him. Definitely a dedicated tech guy when they come back 6 years later and get in touch with the company and solve a problem that's been on their mind since. If you think about it, that's gotta be a really good feeling. Kinda like closing a cold case. Our next story today comes to us from, actually isn't from TalesFromTechSupport, it's from r/sysadmin, but I was just made aware of this story in the comments of the one we just finished. Now, this was posted to r/sysadmin about 3 years ago by a user called You Should Be on Arch. It's called The Case of the 500-Mile Email. Now, this was originally posted to Sage members by Trey Harris way back in 2002. Let's jump right in. Here's a problem that sounded impossible. I almost regret posting the story to a wide audience because it makes a great tale over drinks at a conference. The story is slightly altered in order to protect the guilty, elide over irrelevant and boring details, and generally make the whole thing more entertaining. I was working in a job running the campus email system some years ago when I got a call from the chairman of the statistics department. We're having a problem sending email out of the department. What's the problem? I asked. We can't send mail more than 500 miles, the chairman explained. I choked on my latte. Come again? We can't send mail farther than 500 miles from here, he repeated. A little bit more, actually. Call it 520 miles, but no farther. Email really doesn't work that way generally, I said, trying to keep panic out of my voice. One doesn't display panic when speaking to a department chairman, even of a relatively impoverished department like statistics. What makes you think you can't send mail more than 500 miles? It's not what I think, the chairman replied testily. You see, when we first noticed this happening a few days ago, You waited a few days, I interrupted, a tremor tinging in my voice, and you couldn't send email this whole time? We could send email, just not more than 500 miles. Yes, I finished for him. I got that, but why didn't you call earlier? Well, we hadn't collected enough data to be sure of what was going on until just now. Right, this is the chairman of statistics. Anyway, I asked one of the geostatisticians to look into it. Geostatisticians? Yes, and she's produced a map showing the radius within which we can send email to be slightly more than 500 miles. There are a number of destinations within that radius that we can't reach either, or reach sporadically, but we can never email farther than this radius. I see, I said, and put my head in my hands. When did this start? A few days ago, you said, but did you change anything in your systems at that time? Well, the consultant came in and patched our server and rebooted it, but I called him and he said he didn't touch the mail system. Okay, let me have a look and I'll call you back, I said, scarcely believing that I was playing along. It wasn't April Fool's Day. I tried to remember if someone owed me a practical joke. I logged into their department server and sent a few test mails. This was in the Research Triangle of North Carolina, and a test mail to my own account was delivered without a hitch. Ditto for one sent to Richmond and Atlanta and Washington, another to Princeton, 400 miles worked. But then I tried to send an email to Memphis, 600 miles, it failed. Boston, failed. Detroit, failed. I got out my address book and started trying to narrow this down. New York, 420 miles worked, but Providence, 580 miles, failed. I was beginning to wonder if I had lost my sanity. I tried emailing a friend who lived in North Carolina but whose ISP was in Seattle. Thankfully, it failed. If the problem had to do with the geography of the human recipient and not his mail server, I think I would have broken down in tears. Having established that, unbelievably, the problem as reported was true and repeatable, I took a look at the sendmail.cf file. It looked fairly normal. In fact, it looked familiar. I diffed it against the sendmail.cf in my home directory. It hadn't been altered. It was a sendmail.cf I had written, and I was fairly certain I hadn't enabled the fail mail over 500 miles option. At a loss, I telnetted into the SMTP port. The server happily responded with a Sun OS sendmail banner. Wait a minute, a Sun OS sendmail banner? At the time, Sun was still shipping SendMail 5 with its operating system, even though SendMail 8 was fairly mature. Being a good system administrator, I had standardized on SendMail 8, and also being a good system administrator, I had written a sendmail.cf that used the nice long self-documenting option and variable names available in SendMail 8 rather than the cryptic punctuation mark codes that had been used in SendMail 5. The pieces fell into place all at once, and I again choked on the dregs of my now cold latte. When the consultant had patched the server, he had apparently upgraded the version of Sun OS, and in so doing, downgraded SendMail. The upgrade helpfully left the sendmail.cf alone, even though it was now the wrong version. It so happens that SendMail 5, at least the version that Sun shipped, which had some tweaks, could deal with the SendMail 8 sendmail.cf, as most of the rules had at that point remained unaltered. But the new long configuration options, those it saw as junk and skipped, and the SendMail binary had no defaults compiled in for most of these, so finding no suitable settings in the sendmail.cf file, they were set to 0. One of the settings that was set to 0 was the timeout to connect to the remote SMTP server. Some experimentation established that on this particular machine with its typical load, a 0 timeout would abort a connect call in slightly over 3 milliseconds. An odd feature of our campus network at the time was that it was 100% switched. An outgoing packet wouldn't incur a router delay until hitting the POP and reaching a router on the far side. So time to connect to a lightly loaded remote host on a nearby network would actually largely be governed by the speed of light distance to the destination rather than by incidental router delays. Feeling slightly giddy, I typed into my shell, $units, 1311 units, 63 prefixes. You have 3 millilight seconds. You want miles times 558.84719/0.0017893979, 500 miles or a little bit more. Wow, from the time I spent in tech support, I think if I got a call like this, I would be questioning over and over if they were pulling my chain. But that also is why there are people who are paid the big bucks to do this stuff, and I have no clue what I'm talking about. Our next story today comes to us from Tubis61. Classic case of PEBCAC. Let's jump right in. When I got my first job in IT, I worked in a team supporting a government mainframe system. Our government were just getting into the idea of external consultancies doing work because they were better than the government employees. The net result of this was we were faced with an annual intake of sparkly-faced kids with degrees in geography or business studies arriving as consultants working for one of the largest global consultancies at the time. They would arrive, go through an induction for about 6 weeks, disappear to the States for a COBOL programming course for another 6 weeks, at which point they would arrive back and you would find they were your boss. I was saddled with one who kept calling me for somewhat spurious reasons. The one that is indelibly burned into my memory was the enter key not working issue. On this day, manager was running some user testing on the system, and the instructions were pretty clear. You filled in the test data from the script. Yes, there was a paper script. We are talking about the late 80s here, and then you hit the action key to move to the next page. Note, the action key on this particular flavor of mainframe was where you would see the backspace key on a modern PC keyboard. The key just below this had a very different function and could be mapped in the terminal settings applied when a user logged in. On the particular day, I had a large number of calls about an issue with one of our line printers. It was apparently spitting out endless sheets of fanfold paper with the same information on it. One of the users had fed the printer with 4 boxes of fanfold and had neatly stacked the 4 boxes of output ready for collection. I logged into the system and checked the print spool. It was full with hundreds of pending print jobs, all the same size, and all tagged with manager as the owner. I disabled printing, cleared the spool, and restarted the scheduler, and sure enough, jobs started to be added for manager again. Time to go and see them. I looked around the office, spotted manager, and went over. Immediately, I was told the mainframe is broken, a rather odd statement to come from a manager for a global IT consultancy. You would expect a little more technical detail at least. On questioning what the issue was, I was told no matter how many times he hit the enter key, nothing was happening. Everything suddenly fell in place. My next question was, have you read the user manuals for this application? I knew full well they had not. In the manuals, you were told that the key labeled action was the equivalent of enter on this mainframe terminal. There was also a very handy keyboard map diagram showing the action key and also telling users that the key below the action key was mapped to print screen. I said, "You've been printing the same screen over and over again." This was met with a flat denial, and manager started to have a go at me in a very loud voice. Now, I've never been one to take crap from anyone, especially an inept, arrogant fool promoted beyond their level of ability. I turned round, went to the printers, grabbed a barrow, put the 4 boxes of wasted fanfold on the barrow, got all of the additional sheets from the printer, and added them to the boxes, walked back and said, "Yes, you have. Here are 4 boxes of fanfold, along with a number of additional sheets, all screen prints from your terminal." The response was classic. How can you prove it's from my terminal? The answer to that was very simple. Every user's name was included on the printouts, and it appeared on every single sheet. I took great pleasure in going through every single box, pointing to their name over and over again. That would not be my last encounter with them, but they were shifted into a role where they had no responsibility for a team. Yep. Sounds like the PEBCAC was actually an ID10T. If you're not familiar with an ID10T error, make sure you write it down and then look at it closely. Our next story today comes to us from Isaac Dombestein. This is why you always disconnect your tech gear before lightning strikes. Let's jump right in. Hi all, longtime lurker, first time poster. I don't work in tech support, but I am my family's go-to tech support guy, so I have a few stories to tell. So back in January, I installed a Google Mesh system in my parents' home, so they could have better network coverage in their house, as the ISP provided router wasn't powerful enough to cover the entire house. The Mesh system is of the second-gen Google Wi-Fi system, not the newer Nest Wi-Fi stuff. Now, if you don't know how a mesh network is set up, you have one main router, master, and several access points which kind of act like the slaves. They all wirelessly connect to each other and provide a stable and reliable connection around the house you set the points up in, as long as you set them up within reasonable range. In our case, we had the master in my dad's office directly connected to the ISP router, and two slaves placed in the hallway and in the living room. This system worked perfect and was pretty reliable up until this story. One morning, I wake up to something like 7 or 8 missed calls from my mom. Apparently that morning, there had been a few powerful lightning strikes in the area where they live, and the power was all out for a while until my dad hooked up the power generator in the house. However, when they got everything back up and running, they noticed there was no network in the house at all. So I started going through all the usual troubleshooting steps I could before I had to go to work, which wasn't really that much. Check everything's connected properly both on the main router and the mesh system. Check if my dad has a wired connection to his desktop. Check our file server for network connection. And finally, reboot absolutely everything. Router, mesh, everything that has to do with the network. Once it all was back up and running again, still nothing. So I started thinking the main line into the entire village that provides the ADSL network for the village could be shot or maybe a base station. So I checked the ISP status page for any eventual line disconnects or errors, which I found none. So I told my parents to just live off the cellular connection as much as possible for the day before I headed to work, then we'd look more into it when I got back home. Later that day, I got a call from my mom and was told that apparently some techs that work for a contractor company our ISP uses just out of nowhere contacted my dad and told him they would come up to their house and replace their main modem as they had apparently seen some irregularities. How the heck they were able to see that, I have no idea. But I had figured earlier that day that the modem probably was shot since I never saw any errors on the ISP status page. So my dad somehow managed to set up the ISP router himself with the correct settings and the main network went back up. However, it wasn't really working as it should. So as I said, I installed a Google Mesh system in their house so they would have proper connection all around the house. However, from that morning, the mesh network didn't work at all. They asked me a few times throughout the week what the issue could be, but the little troubleshooting I was able to do earlier in the week never really told me anything. We checked connections, rebooted, nothing worked. For information, I live 5 hours away from my parents by car, and I don't have a car. So it wasn't really an option to get to their house and do the troubleshooting myself. So this all had to be done over the phone, which is hard enough when you work with IT competent people, but even harder when you talk with someone who doesn't really know much more than the basics to operate their computer and smartphone on a day-to-day basis. So this morning we went haywire on getting the mesh network back up and running, as well as figuring out what in the F actually brought it down in the first place. The first thing we did was the usual textbook stuff, reboot, check connections, all that simple stuff. After all that was done and we still were stuck with the same result, it hit me. Every router has some sort of status LED that lights up in all kinds of colors to indicate the status of the router. In the case of these Google Wi-Fi points, it's the following: white for everything's okay, blinking blue for both working and ready for setup, solid blue for factory reset and progress, blinking orange for no connection, blinking red for when something's wrong with the router. This hit me way too late, so out of nowhere, I pulled up the Google support page that shows what the colors mean before I asked my dad What color is the front LED on the router? To my unexpected surprise, I get back, it's blinking orange. At this point, I just smashed my head in the desk and immediately had an idea of what the issue could be. So I immediately told my dad to go downstairs and grab one of the 2 mesh points I had put there and bring it upstairs. After 5 minutes, we had a new point upstairs in my dad's office connected and powering on. Wouldn't you guess it, it got a connection right away. It was also 10 times quicker at starting up. This immediately confirmed my suspicion. What had happened was the lightning that fried our main router also managed to fry parts of the motherboard in the Google Wi-Fi point that was directly connected to the router with a cable. Therefore, the Ethernet in port was fried and the router didn't receive any network signal in. So what we had to do was reset the entire mesh network, set up one of the other routers as the master router and the 2 others as slaves again in the same positions, and voila, it all was up and running again. Now, even though we got it all back up and running, I have set up a warranty case with Google to see if we can get this replaced. But until then, the partially dead point serves as the hallway mesh point. So, moral of the story, if you know there's going to be any sort of lightning in your area, please make sure to disconnect any network equipment that is critical and could be killed easily if lightning strikes. This whole story seems like a big ol' advertisement for surge protectors and UPS systems. I mean, they're both made to protect against this, so if these items had been on some kind of system like this, I don't think they would have had as much problem. However, I'm no electrician, I don't know how electricity works, and I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comments down below. Our next story today comes to us from Jackal Feed, and that's how you invalidate your service agreement. Let's jump right in. It's late on a Saturday and I'm trying to wind down into the last half hour of my shift when I get it. The call you don't want to get when you're trying to get out of the door. Call comes in, and not only does the site not really know how to explain what they did clearly, ESL caller, they don't know why they did it. All I can really get out of them is that after a power outage, they can't run any cards. After some back and forth getting their service ID, verifying what equipment of ours is on their site, and what contracts we have with them, I start probing to see where it hurts. That's when I get the full story. The site came back up from the power outage, and their POS and Commander server were back up and running, but they couldn't do any financial transactions. Do they call us? No. Do they submit an online support ticket? Nope. What did they do? They unplugged every Ethernet cable out of the router and jammed them back in at random without noting what was where and where they put them. I look out at the setting sun from the office window and realize it may be a while before I get home to eat dinner. First thing I do is shoot a message to one of my T3 specialists because part of our SOP is to run situations like this by them. The reply to my team's message is, in verbatim, ha 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 ha. And then my T3 sends me a snippet of the KB on things that invalidate your service contract with unguided attempts at self-repair highlighted. I let the site know that we won't be able to dispatch for this one and that they, in nicer words, effed up. They don't fight me, but I'm just talking to a cashier and they usually leave the snarling for their management. I do want to get this resolved, but I can't see what's plugged into where because I'm hundreds of miles from them, and we can't connect to the site because the WAN 1 port has some other random Ethernet cable jammed into it. So I call their managed network service provider to see if they can see, well, anything. I tell the router tech guy what happened, and his immediate response is, ha 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 ha, oh wow. We end up walking the site through tracing cables together and trying to get the router talking to their ISP so we can log in and see anything. But the site is just so clueless about anything to do with tech, and there are some blatant language issues that are making it harder. Router tech ends up escalating to the site's parent company, XYZ Petrol, to get them to dispatch an on-site tech, which they'll likely be fined for, and until that's resolved, we can't do anything for them. Because Ethernet goes in any port, right? Anyways, the site learned a very expensive and painful lesson today and won't be able to do literally anything but cash transactions for maybe days. With that, I promptly fled the building before my luck got any worse. Thanks for reading. So let's get this straight. They know nothing about a system that basically runs their whole company, and then they just decide, well, it's not working, let's take it apart and put it back together without any experience at all. I sincerely hope whoever eventually went out there to fix this charged them a massive ID10T tax. Our next story today comes to us from ASCII Forever. These processors are too good. Let's jump right in. Kind of long, apologies if it's too boring. Many years ago, I was a service tech for an automation company. We sold complete solutions including all hardware and software for large installations. Most of these were multiple branch situations connected via leased phone lines back when the internet wasn't a thing. One of the guys I worked for was from Russia and one of the smartest people I've ever worked with. His experience in computers involved having to rebuild most systems at a customer's site since the factory just shipped stuff out to make their quotas. No one cared if it worked. So he was an excellent troubleshooter down to the component level. He was our in-house tech support guru. Let's call him Ivan. Some of the items we sold with our systems were computer terminals, which were manufactured by another vendor, and they frankly were not that great. My company was in the process of spinning up our own ability to manufacture a new line of terminals, but 2 large sales came up before we were ready, so our old vendor was tasked to build an intermediate model, better than the old ones, not as good as our new and improved models would be. So they built around 150 to 200 units, half were installed for a customer in California, and half went to a customer in the eastern US. We started to get reports of erratic behavior from both customers. Basically, the display would get scrambled and the terminal had to be reset, soft reset, but it cleared any work in progress, so the customer had to re-enter what they were doing. We figured out that static electricity was a common cause. A user would walk across some carpet, touch the terminal, and the display would scramble. Sometimes it would happen without anyone touching it at all. We kicked this problem back to the vendor and sent some of the problem units to them. They also sent one of their QA techs to the customer's site to see if he could figure it out. We also sent a couple of units to our engineering group at our manufacturing center. So lots of people were working on the problem, but no one was working very hard. The vendor knew we would not be buying any more terminals from them, so they kind of went through the motions. Our engineering folks had many problems they were working on, and they knew that we would not have any more of this model coming online, so they were not too invested in the problem either. The customer was really unhappy with how long things were dragging on, months, and was complaining to the sales team, who was complaining to my boss, who was the service manager for the Western US. He called Ivan and me in and said he wanted us to solve the problem. Forget about everyone else who was working on it. Overtime was authorized for us to work after hours. Ivan knew way more about digital circuits than I did, but I was around as an assistant. That evening, we pulled one of the units apart so the logic board was exposed, but the unit was powered up. We found we could force the problem by simply touching the microprocessor chip with a metal tool or even a finger running it along the leads. We could not believe that an entire load of chips was defective, so Ivan was poking around and then got the idea that maybe the chip was getting dirty power. We had an oscilloscope handy and he checked for ripple on the power lead for the chip and it looked fine. However, Ivan realized the voltage looked wrong. It should be 5 volts. I couldn't tell from scale we were using, so we grab a DVM and check the voltage, and it's about 4.5 volts. Ivan grabbed a catalog we had and looked up the chip. It required 5 volts plus or minus 0.25 volts, so the power was out of spec, but the terminal still worked at 95% of the time. He started checking voltages where the supply connected to the logic board. It was around 4.95 volts. The power supply was in an external brick, which we opened up and found 5.05 volts. I think this was almost 40 years ago. The brick was connected to the terminal by a 6-foot multiple lead cable. I was thinking how terrible this was. I had no idea how we were going to fix it. I'm guessing the vendor is going to have to rebuild all the power supplies. Or we are. Ivan just held up a hand and continued reading the catalog and looking into the power supply. He then announces that the 5 volts is supplied by a specific regulator in the power supply. And the company makes a 6-volt regulator in an identical case, and we'll just swap it and see what happens. Next day, we went to a local supplier and bought a couple of the 6-volt regulators, rushed it back to the office, and swapped out the 5-volt for a 6. The regulator was not even soldered in, it used a socket. We powered the terminal up and started checking voltages. We had at least 5 volts everywhere, and the terminal display was stable now. We had another terminal, so we did the same thing for it and found it was stable also. We wrote up our findings and sent them off to our engineering team. In the meantime, we bought enough 6-volt regulators to upgrade all our customers' units. We told our local tech to just start changing out the regulators on an as-needed basis and to put a colored sticky dot on each power supply he upgraded. Then, when we got a whole bunch of stuff from our engineering team, they had created a field change order complete with components, diagrams, forms, and wanted us to use this instead. We figured their fix would take over an hour per unit to upgrade, ours would take 5 minutes. They had included additional wiring to make the voltage adjustable on a unit-by-unit basis. Ivan and I talked it over with our boss and decided we'd just proceed with our easy fix and hope no one followed up with us. Ivan pointed out that the real problem was the chips were too good. If they had really required the specified voltage, the problem would have been discovered by the manufacturer and solved before the terminals left the factory. Of course, he was joking, but it was kind of true. Some weeks later, I was at a party where one of the engineers that worked for terminal manufacturer happened to be. He and I knew each other pretty well, and I knew he had been one of the team that designed the problem terminal. I was describing what we had found and how we had fixed it, and he kinda leaned back in his seat and rolled his eyes. I asked him what the problem was, and he told me that the original design called for the power supply to be internal to the terminal, so there would not be a 6-foot power lead. So maybe everything would have been okay if they hadn't switched to the external brick, which was done since they wanted to use a slimmer case for the terminal. At the end of the day, the customer was happy, the sales team was happy, and we were happy. And I got a lesson in perfect being the enemy of good enough. Ah yes, the classic company shipping things out to meet their quotas while not having any quality control. We see that a lot. Our next story today comes to us from Tuxedo Jack. Don't underestimate me, or exit pursued by an NDA. Let's jump right in. Well, 2020 was a heck of a year, wasn't it? I finally got a lot of the things I've wanted. I've moved to a previous address of mine, an energy-efficient townhouse with 3 floors, and the first one has my private office. And I've officially started a foray into Texas politics. Oh, come on now, we all saw that coming. I didn't expect to change jobs again, though. I suppose the old maxim, you don't quit bad jobs, you quit bad managers, is true in the end. But considering I'm posting this from Cozumel right now, well, as 2019 ended, a lot of things happened. I finally got my personal situation sorted out. I cleaned up my life, and I stopped caring about what family thought about me. My wife and I celebrated our first anniversary, and I finally realized that it's time that I started valuing time and work-life balance over being a mercenary and getting cash. Now, the company I'd worked for since 2013 was a very good company. I came in from an Austin hospital chain that got bought out and went national, and I spent 7 years working as a general Tier 2, Tier 3 sysadmin, handling all kinds of accounts. I worked on things ranging from lawyers to medical practices to schools, with things ranging from IT black ops to massive remote desktop farm compromises to regulatory compliance, as you all will remember from my stories about my time there. Unfortunately, at the end of 2018, the original management team sold the company to a venture capital firm. And when the original owners moved up to the new mothership, the HR Daleks brought in new people from outside in an attempt to standardize the firm. Of course, we all know how that song and dance goes. We rejoin our hero in mid-January 2020, prior to COVID really hitting its stride. So I'm curious what's going on here, I said, staring at my boss across the table. For the past 6 years, my raise has come like clockwork on the 1st of January. Just like clockwork. It's now about to pass the 21st, and it's not been applied, nor have I been notified of a review. Would you mind explaining what's going on here? You need to talk to Cockwomble, Jack. I'm not in on raises for once, the regional director said. This man had been my boss since 2015, when he started running the show locally and then got promoted to regional director. Of course, a month or two later, once COVID became an epidemic, he was out for a while, then resigned in order to spend time with his family. I'd been annoyed by his replacement, an annoying little jumped up schmuck brought in by the director of ops, whom he was friends with from a competing MSP. I should mention that he had already pissed off nearly every legacy employee, meaning those who had been around pre-acquisition in one way or another, but I'd been trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. This all changed, of course, when the bastard, referred to after this as Cockwomble, made one of my friends leave work crying. At that point, I decided that he was going to get cordial treatment at the absolute nicest, because making a friend of mine cry was intolerable, especially from a mincing little crap drunk on white wine, vodka, benzos, and power, who should have stayed a Red Robin shift lead and bugger me with a rake if I didn't start pushing back. Other, smarter coworkers saw the writing on the walls and jumped ship for greener pastures. I worked with the most skilled and technically versed techs in the company, and together, we formed an elite team that addressed the largest clients with the most intense needs and projects. The entire team left as a result of Cockwomble's actions. One of them grew tired of fighting his boneheaded decisions and left to become a developer lead. Another left to run the help desk at a startup, and another went to work as in-house IT for a private firm. Cockwomble meanwhile decided to turn what was left of the help desk into a cookie-cutter MSP, meaning that he did the following: hired non-technical dispatchers to assign tickets to technicians without being asked to actually check and see if they could handle the load or understand what the tickets actually entail before dispatching them out. Hired purchasing employees who, with the exception of one employee, couldn't be asked to quote out what we specifically named, even if we gave them part numbers and all. Removed the telecommuting work-from-home program for employees, ostensibly to promote office culture. Started aggressively soliciting that employees post positive reviews on Glassdoor, using such phrases like clear guidance and the like. Started trimming what he considered deadwood clients with low monthly recurring revenue, high ticket volume clients, etc. Turned my team's very chill office into the company lounge, and put my team next to the break room and parts closet with purchasing. Pushed hot desking and an open office, with 100% of employees in the office 40 hours a week, even after COVID was raging stateside. Strongly discouraged employees talking amongst themselves, to the point where he and the ops director said that any sort of back channels among the employees would be treated as sabotaging the company. Meanwhile, Cockwomble was, in actuality, driving morale and revenue to points too low that they couldn't be quantified, only expressed in ways that involved employees and clients leaving, willingly or otherwise. But I digress. I schlepped over to Cockwomble's office, the next door down, and knocked. "Hey Cockwomble, got a minute? We need to talk." "Can you put it in an email, Jack? I'm kinda busy," he said. "I see your screen's in the reflection from the window behind you. You want to try again?" I said, completely nonplussed. Well, I resolved to find out why the web filter we had apparently wasn't working properly. "Fine, what's up?" His irritation was apparent, and I figured that I'd make it quick since he was an annoying bee at the best of times, but he couldn't do without me, for now. So, as you know, I'm due for a raise. It normally hits on the first of the year, and it's 3 weeks in now and nothing's there. Given that it's hit every year for the past 6, what's up here? He smirked. "Oh, you have to talk to HR Dalek about that? I don't have control over that anymore." "Yeah, I'm gonna do that, then I'll CC you," I replied. And for a second, I could see that he was livid with my reply. But screw it, you shirk your responsibility, I'll call your butt on it. "Okay, you do that," he said, turning his attention back to the screens and the entirely too pasty contents therein. Good lord, his taste ran to Snow Whites and Gingers. I left and walked back to my cube, half height too, not even a properly tall cube, but the cheap bastard bought used cubicle partitions, picking up my giant TARDIS mug of coffee on the way. En route to the break room, I grumbled. I'd saved them 5,000 plus man hours the previous year by designing, creating, installing, and maintaining an imaging system that worked for all our clients. It took me 40 hours to set up and test, and they saved 125 times that. That I was able to prove. You bet your butt I was going to push for a merit raise there. Let's do some off-the-cuff math, shall we? I spent 40 hours to design and implement that system. At my pay rate, not nearly high enough, that was a pre-tax labor outlay of $11.50 and change. They saved 5,000-ish man-hours that year, and based off the admittedly pathetic pay that they gave a Tier 1, that saved them, ballpark, $90,000 pre-tax in 1 year. That I could prove from documentation. It was probably quite a bit higher, but I wasn't about to piss around in ConnectWise figuring it out. Even a one-time bonus of a percentage of that would be acceptable, right? Nope, nothing. My butt was left out in the cold. Meanwhile, new sysadmins were hired on making more than I made, and in Austin, that's not that much. I took evening on-call shifts to help pay the bills, and $100 a shift pre-tax wasn't much. But it was 3 hours a night, 2 or 3 times a week, and it added up. Considering that at the time my wife wasn't working while she was in school for a master's equivalent, and I was the only breadwinner, well, we needed the money. I dashed off an email to HR Dalek, CCing Cockwomble, and hit send. I didn't hear back for a week, despite repeated follow-ups, and it was only after I turned on Red Receipts that I got a calendar invite for a meeting with them both. By this point, as you imagine, I was royally pissed, and I had no intention of going in with anything less than my best imitation of Paulie from Goodfellas. Oh, business was bad? F you, pay me. So you had a fire? F you, pay me. Place got hit by lightning? F you, pay me. I didn't expect what happened next though. Holy crap, I thought as I read through a trouble ticket raised by a very profitable client. The CEO was particularly demanding, asking techs to come to his house on occasion. I'd personally been out there on Christmas Eve once, and he'd asked for someone to come to their office same day for something to do on his Mac. Of course, thanks to Cockwomble's effery with the queues, techs were lucky if they were running 40 tickets deep, and first contacts were lucky if they were 4 hours behind the initial call-in for anything but escalations. Please send someone who is an expert with Macs. If someone shows up and has to use Google to figure out how to transfer data, they will need to inform their managers that we will be reevaluating our relationship and we will escort that person off-site. Instead, he got Cockwomble replying to him, ripping him a new one about his tone and demeanor in a ticket, and doing so in writing, using unprofessional terms and language himself. Well, I understand if you have frustrations about our service, I still need you to muster a level of professionalism that would show our employees the respect earned with their roles. Internal screaming didn't begin to describe the mental dialogue I had going. The CEO wasn't having any of it. When I returned from the UK, have account manager meet client office manager and myself at our offices. Either Cockwomble is fired or your company is. I really thought I'd get in trouble for that, Cockwomble said, walking up to the end of the aisle of cubes. He was being such a meanie. I'm just looking out for you all. No, you absolute moron, you weren't, I replied. You just lost us a $120,000 a year client. You know how many clients we have that are larger than that in the central region? 3. That's right, you single-handedly lost us a massive client, and we're probably going to have to tighten our belts now. For your sake, you'd best be able to explain to Ops Director why they left. Oh, I already did. She and I went out last night and I told her over drinks. You didn't know? You colossal crap stain, I screamed internally. Out loud though, I refrained from vulgarities. You know, when I was hired, it was a terminable offense to be the reason a client left. Doubly so if they actually called you out by name. Times change, he smirked. And yet incompetence still floats to the top like feces in the toilet, I shot back, sipping my coffee. You have your meeting with me and HR Dalek in 2 hours, he snapped. HR Dalek can explain a few things to you. Good, I'd love to hear him explain why you're not let go for this. I turned back to my screen. If you don't mind, some of us have clients to keep. He flounced off in a huff. I loaded up the Play Store on my Pixel 3 XL. At this point, I knew I couldn't trust any of them to be honest with me or even not gaslight me, and I figured that it was time that I went full nuclear. Knowing that Texas is a one-party state, meaning that only one party needs to be aware of, and consent to audio recording. I downloaded an audio recording app, then set it to hide notifications from the system tray. We all know where this is going, so we'll come back to it later. OOP, you left us on a cliffhanger. Thanks so much. I will be watching for the update on this one because I was sitting on the end of my seat. Is this kind of what Blue Balls is for Reddit? We'll come back to that one when there is an update. As for now though, our next story today comes to us from ULFR. Bad news team, the UK got an inch of snow, whole country shut down. We're taking their calls. Let's jump right in. Many moons ago, I did my co-ops for an antivirus company. Did the whole gamut, went from consumer to corporate support, and experienced a veritable rainbow of interactions with callers. The one that sticks out the most in my mind was when the UK got a snowstorm, and we got tapped for their support calls. Okay, you got me. It wasn't an inch, I think it was 3. I can't remember the exact amount, but I do recall most of my team snorting when they were told. To us, that was a mild inconvenience. We were supposed to treat them like regular calls, but relax our prohibition on profanity. With American callers, we were supposed to hang up once someone started cussing in any form. UK folks were allowed to cuss unless it was specifically directed at the person on the call, and they got a warning first. It honestly didn't seem like that big a deal. I mean, they speak English, we speak English, it'll be a fun time with funny accents. And for the most part, it was. If I got lost in the sauce, I would ask them to back up and slow down because I'm an American and we all know they're slow. If you don't get the joke, do everyone a favor and ponder it silently. The folks from across the pond were pictures of magnanimity and did their very best to go slow for me. Around 5, I was working second shift. I thought this was just going to be some fun. I knew not the linguistic adventure that was waiting for me. And it so happens, people from the UK are time travelers, so 5 p.m. for me is 10 p.m. for them. I take my next call, and the voice on the other end of the line is a man who is clearly very upset with a side of moderately drunk, and I am utterly incapable of deciphering anything this man is hurling at me other than the profanity. The profanity came in loud and clear. The other noises this man was making sounded like what happens when an American tries to use English pronunciation on something written in Polish. Lots and lots and lots of consonants and vowels, and no meaningful information communicated. I explained to the man that I couldn't understand him, and he needed to go slow for me because this was getting us nowhere. I recall specifically saying, "I am trying to help, please stop shouting." And it so happens the man wasn't shouting, his voice went all the way up to 11. He toned it back down once he'd made it clear that he wasn't shouting previously. A brainstorm. Since he could understand me just fine, I asked if there was anyone else home I could talk to who isn't as Welsh. He nearly bust a gut laughing either at my idea or my description, and then more sober ones. I took that to mean he was home alone. That's not going to work. I was almost tempted to go with 1 grunt for yes, 2 for no, before I had a second and much better brainstorm. My last call was from a person who was perfectly comprehensible, and it had only been 5 minutes. That guy was super nice, and I'd done a good job helping him fix his problem. Maybe he'd do me a solid in return. I wasn't sure if that was a kosher thing I could do, so I peeked my head up over the cubicle wall to get my supervisor's attention. I guess he was listening to my call because his face had a look of existential horror with a side of headache pain. It brightened up considerably though when I floated my idea and I got the go-ahead. In a tech support call center first, I actually called back my last customer. Happily enough, he picked up right away and asked me what was up. I explained the situation with the Welshman on the other line and asked if he might be able to help me figure out exactly what he's trying to say. The man has trouble breathing afterwards from laughing so hard and says he's been to Cardiff a time or two and would be delighted to help his poorer relations across the pond. Perfect. I conference the calls and all 3 of us are in on the line. Irate Welsh noises greet me once I've made sure nobody got dropped. The conversation goes as follow. Angry Welsh noises. "Oh, good lord, I see why you were in a spot of bother." Jovial Welsh noises. "Not happening, mate. She's been dead for years. Now what's your issue?" Long burst of profanity-laden Welsh noises. Eventually, we got his problem sorted with a minimum of fuss and bother. 10 minutes later, we were sorted, and he had an email address to reach out to if he had further trouble. He was on dial-up and a thingummy in his software corrupted because 56K dropped packets like they were singles at a strip club. Also, couldn't fix the problem whilst on the phone because 56K. I told him I'm not calling a translator again if I can't read his email, and I got a stream of Welsh sounds in return. I knew something was up because I didn't get an immediate translation. All the translator guy relayed from a much longer string of noises, he says he'll do his best. There's laughter over the phone from both UK folks, and then the translator says, "No, you can't say that to a Yank, it's different over there. You can insist as much as you like, I'm not passing it on." There's a Welsh annoyed grunt and then a clicking sound. Translator dude rushed through goodbye noises and accepted my thanks graciously. Pretty sure he rushed off the phone. I did get a gold star, positive remark on performance review for overcoming a language barrier in an inventive fashion. The Welshman never emailed a follow-up, and to this day, I occasionally wonder what could have possibly been that offensive. So I was kind of disappointed that we didn't have a continuation of the first story yet, and I will be looking for that. But this story was so well written that it was a great follow-up to it anyway. Now, I've got a good friend online that I used to play some games with and used to be in my live streams when I was a gaming streamer way back in the day. He's from Ireland, and I just call him Mumbles because I couldn't understand a word he said. Elmo, if you're listening, I still love you long time. Our next story today comes to us from RHES19. The student employee with the alleged power to change your online banking password. Let's jump right in. So for a bit of background, I'm a college student who works at our on-campus IT help desk. One of the things we directly interact with users for is password resets. On this particular day, a faculty member, not teaching staff, just a university employee, comes into the desk in person looking for help filling out the campus conflict of interest form. As a project for his internship with the IT department of our campus, one of our other student employees created an online web app for submitting COI forms, and this is the first semester it is being used. Anyways, this user apparently doesn't know his password because he almost never uses his university account. So naturally, we go through the process of a password reset. Being student employees, our policy is that we can only do a student password reset. Staff password reset tickets can be created by us, but must be completed by network services. So we create a password reset ticket for user. So here's how our first exchange went, paraphrasing by the way. We'll get a ticket sent off to network services, we'll give you a call once your password is ready. What's your phone number? User immediately rattles off 2 phone numbers like he's an auctioneer. My coworker had to ask him to repeat it about 5 times, just so he could pick out the numbers bit by bit, as the user says his numbers as fast as possible each time. Perfect. Someone will give you a call as soon as network services has reset your password. Well, I'll just come back in an hour, how's that? And he leaves. So an hour later, our user comes back, this time with me as the only employee currently at the IT desk. Here's your new password, I'll write it down on a sticky note for you. So this won't change my password, right? Because as it is, my phone when I log in shows those little stars and enters my password for me. Well, yes, this does change your password, but, well shoot, I don't want to change my password. Internally, if you don't know your password, how do you expect to log in if we don't give you a new password? You can always change your password once you're logged in to be anything you choose. So this changed my phone password, like for my bank and everything else? No, this only changed your password for university services. Wondering how a person could possibly think a student employee at their university's help desk has the power to change their banking password? Oh, okay, that's good. If it changed my other passwords, I'd have to go talk to person to have them fix my phone again. They do all of my technology stuff for me. So now, how do I do the conflict of interest form? Well, I don't have the link to the form handy, but when my coworker who made the form is at work later today, I'll get the link from him and email it to you so you can fill it out. Don't bother, I'm a technology virgin. I don't know what I'm doing. When does your coworker come in? 11 a.m. Great, I'll see you at 11 so you can walk me through it. For a bit of context, this COI form is ridiculously easy to use. As long as you're logged in, it autofills your name and department. All you have to do is enter your birthday and phone number, I believe, don't quote me on that, and either check or uncheck boxes of different kinds of conflicts of interest you may or may not have. That's it. It's a perfect replica of the physical form that used to be used, but yet we've gotten tons of complaints that the new form is more complicated because apparently online equals complicated, no exceptions. There have been users who claim the form is broken because they ignored the note in the form that shows the exact format they need to have their phone number in for the form to be accepted. I feel like an opportunity was missed here. Don't bother, I'm a technology virgin should have been responded by, well, I've never effed a computer either, but that's not an excuse to not know how to fill out an online form, sir. It's interesting how they get complaints that the new form is more complicated because it's online. I'm guessing those complaints come from the older staff members, because if it was the younger staff members or even the students themselves, I'm sure they'd tell you that the online form is actually a heck of a lot easier because most of them aren't used to using paper at all. Our next story today comes to us from Mad Pino Rage. The previous technician knew what they were doing. Let's jump right in. I was working help desk as a tier 1 technician, and I was working from home because of the pandemic. I was employed at a managed services provider that had multiple clients across various industries. For some clients, when their users called in, I was a glorified ticket maker, and for others, I followed a simple checklist providing basic troubleshooting steps. As for our major clients, I followed an extensive list. That usually involved holding their user's hand through step-by-step instruction documents or walking them through hardware checks. Frequently, I would remote in to check and fix various settings, collect logs and screenshots, contact vendors, and running scripts, patches, etc. Slap a band-aid on it to get the system and or the person working. That was our supreme goal. Otherwise, the issues are escalated to Tier 2, which was the client's corporate and internal IT. Overall, this was not very fulfilling because I always wanted to do more and spend more time on things. However, at least I got a lot of exposure as well as strengthened and sometimes flexed my customer service skills. Anyways, the other techs and I would often reminisce on what collective trope a major client's users were spitting at us. Generally, they said these things out of spite. One that we frequently suffered when informing users the issue had to be escalated, they would exclaim, "The previous technician knew what they were doing," followed by some flavor of, "How come they were able to fix this but not you? Can I talk to the previous technician? I want to talk to your boss," and so much more. For your context, at the time of the story, I had been at this organization for about a year and well acquainted with much of everything. Things clicked and I was in my stride. Irate, insulting, and incorrigible callers no longer negatively affected my mood or energy. I was a Zen professional. So I was at the tail end of my shift, sometime in the evening, when a user called in about some issue. A polite, elderly gentleman who had troubles with some of the company's proprietary software. After remoting in and investigating, it appeared to be something I had dealt with before, but whatever the case, I had to soldier on. Within the realm of what I was allowed to do, I exhausted all efforts. I let the user know I had to escalate the issue to Tier 2. Unsurprisingly, the user starts to berate me. The previous technician knew what they were doing, then followed up about how they talked to a technician several hours ago that was an expert and quickly resolved their earlier issues. My eyes widened as I recognized I had talked to this user earlier. I checked the call history, and I was the only other person they spoke with that day. I felt a rush of excitement, but I quickly contained myself. I verbally acknowledged and let the user elaborate. It was back and forth scorning me and praising the previous technician. They condemned me further, going so far as to accuse me of being new. All the while, unbeknownst to the user praising me, stating the previous technician demonstrated expert skills and was knowledgeable in all things IT and customer service. The user's insolence probably took up a good 5 minutes. Plenty of rope had been laid out at this point. I think there was a brief moment of silence indicating the user had run out of gas. I was a rock dropped in water. I can imagine the ripples of emotion developing on his face as I listened with glee, the audible stammers and fumbling of words over the phone, and his wife's sudden outburst of laughing as I reported, "Sir, that previous technician was me." There was another weak and helpless attempt or two to deflect. I quickly affirmed that I was the previous technician, going into further details of our earlier encounter. Then once again, informed them I was escalating the issue to Tier 2. The user meekly uttered an okay and hung up the phone. Going completely off of the story here, this one reminded me of when I started working at the Sears call center here in Canada way back when I think I was either a late teenager or in my early 20s. Anyway, I got through the training, I sat down at my desk, I went to take my first call, Sears, Rob, how may I help you? And my mom was on the other end of the line. Whoa. So there's over 2,000 employees there for the call centers, probably 500, 600 of them on the phone at any given time. And when I sit down to take my first call, it's my mother placing an order. Now tell me what the chances are of that happening. Our next story today comes to us from Dick Cheney 600. Red wire, black wire, white wire, oops. Let's jump right in. A friend of a friend, long story, had a skee ball game they wanted me to try fixing for them. It was one of the first to have circuit boards, so I didn't really know what to expect. However, there is good news, schematics are available. The bad news is that the wiring to the bottom half is somewhat butchered, and some of the connectors are cracked and would need replacement. After replacing the damaged power cord, I plugged it in and it appears that the motherboard at least boots up. The screen animates in what I call a zeroing around pattern. I can see missing segments, but that may be an easy thing to fix. These older machines actually used incandescent bulbs behind the segments. But first, I need to find the wires for the coin switch and see if the logic responds to that and starts the game. On the schematic, I find that the coin switches go to the 3-pin connector that has the color code white, red, and black. No problem. I find a handy little wire and stick it between the red and black wires, and pop, the machine loses power. What? Well, darn. I guess I blew the fuse. So I take the fuse out and the fuse is intact. Now I'm really getting that sinking feeling that I just made a very expensive and embarrassing mistake. The lights in the room are still on, so I don't think the fuse in the house blew because most houses have the outlets and lights in a given room on the same circuit. However, where does this extension cord go exactly? I follow it to a power strip, which is receiving no power even though the switch is on. I follow that to the outlet, and you guessed it, the GFCI has turned off. I press reset, and hallelujah, the game comes back on, completely unharmed. Re-examining the entire schematic before touching anything else, I figure out what I did. The ball release solenoid runs on the high voltage AC from the wall, using a simple triac to turn it on. They use the same wire colors on the connectors for the ball release solenoid as they did for the coin switches. The ground wire was red instead of green, but white is still neutral and black is still live. So I had disconnected live directly to ground. Thankfully, I didn't use a bare paperclip for that purpose, or I'd probably be dead. In the manufacturer's defense, the two connectors are far away enough from each other that the wires for the wrong one would be too short to actually plug them in together. So in the end, this was really my fault for not reading the entire schematic, or indeed, the entire page of said schematic, before I started crossing wires. There had been times in the past where I'd gone down the rabbit hole of tracing out every single line and trying to understand what everything meant, thus tripling the time it took me to repair something, because I didn't see the forest through the trees. Example, missing a broken solder connection or obviously burned out transistor, connector that works if you push on it or whatever. So that is why I jumped at the opportunity to just say, okay, I found what I'm looking for, let's try this. By the way, if the title sounds familiar, it's a paraphrasing of a kid's book my mom used to read me, where it would say something like red socks, blue socks, white socks, and then oops, with a picture of, for example, someone putting the socks on their hands instead of their feet, putting their shirt on backwards, or whatever. So I guess working on anything that's plugged in these days constitutes tech support? With that being said though, electricity is not something you want to mess with, so if you don't have experience with it, bring in somebody that does, because electricity can kill you. There was a convenience store owner in the next town over from where I live who went up on a ladder and tried to repair his own big sign outside of the convenience store. Got zapped at the top of the ladder, flew off to the bottom, and all of a sudden, there was a family without a dad. Stay away from electricity if you don't know what you're doing. Our next story today comes to us from Beef Out. The white isn't white enough. Let's jump right in. Not sure if it really counts as tech support, but here goes. I'm a web and graphic designer, and I designed a flyer for one of my clients. I sent the design to her via email. It's really hard to match colors from the screen to print, especially since monitor colors don't match up to their local office printer. Plus, screen colors are in RGB, so there are literally some colors that are unachievable in a physical print. Usually, for exact color matching, we have to use Pantone swatches, or when they send it for the actual print, they can sort it out and tweak with the actual technician. I received a call immediately, and she mentioned that she printed out the flyer on the company's office printer. I readied myself for the usual spiel about how monitor colors don't match the printout, etc., etc. Conversation goes like this. Hey, I printed this out and the colors don't match what I see on the screen. Yeah, don't worry about that. Every monitor is different and you can't calibrate it to match your office printer. I used the exact CMYK colors for your logo and fonts. Well, even so, the colors look correct on screen, but not when I print it out. I've used the exact CMYK colors, so you don't have to worry about it. Your professional printer will ensure that you get the right color. Yes, but the whites aren't white enough. I quickly checked my file. Did I leave a translucent layer on by accident? No, it was perfectly white. I told her that the white is as white as it can be. Well, the white ink is not very white. I was stunned. Office and home printers don't have white ink. It's just the white paper. Any white areas are basically just paper that hasn't been printed on. I tried hard to explain this concept to her, that printers don't print the white. Regardless, she insists that they do. I tell her that it cannot be done on an office and home printer. It literally requires a separate offset printing plate that only large commercial printers use, and even then, seldom do people print white at all. She insists that her printer does print white and that the design I sent her simply isn't white enough. I tell her maybe her paper stock isn't white, maybe the paper itself is yellowish. No, it's not my paper. It's that your white isn't white enough. Look, I've used some of my liquid whiteout on the paper. It's very white. Your design is not printing the white colors properly. I was flabbergasted. Couldn't laugh out loud. She literally used whiteout on the printout and complained that the correction fluid was whiter than the paper. Can't really remember what happened after, but she showed her boss and he seemed happy with the design, so everything went well, I suppose. Do you think the boss in the background quietly ushered her off the phone when he heard what she was arguing about? OP did a much better job than I would have though, because I honestly don't think I could have kept my laughter contained. Our next story today comes to us from ZoftOS. This is the third order I've got shipped to me without a USB dongle. Let's jump right in. Thank you for calling Anonymous Service Desk. This is OP. Can I have your first name and last name? It's blank blank. Okay, I've got you pulled up here. What can I help you with today? Yeah, so I've had 3 total wireless mouse and keyboards combos shipped out to me to replace my old ones that broke. And this is the 4th time I've had to call in because they send me the mouse, they send the keyboard, but there hasn't been a USB dongle a single time with them. I don't know if the person shipping these things out is just checked out for the day, all day, every day, or what, but this is getting insane. Okay, can I just get a few minutes to pull up some of your order information here and verify everything? Yeah, whatever you gotta do, but I need to have this issue resolved. I have work I need to do. Okay, just a minute then. I proceed to verify that she has indeed somehow made it through 3 different IT people and has 3 combos shipped to her now before coming into my queue and being a colorful character towards me. Okay, I verified everything here, and I'd just like to verify something with the device you were just sent. Could you open the package and remove both the keyboard and the mouse? Yes, I already did. There is nothing else in here. Okay, and now can I get you to take the mouse and look on the bottom side of it for anything that may look as though the USB dongle was placed into a slot to be held during shipment. It may be pressed into the bottom of the mouse lengthwise or widthwise. Yeah, I don't see anything like that. Wait, is this it right here? Has it been here the whole time? And I have 2 other combos sitting here for a week, and it's been there the whole time? Why didn't the other 2 people tell me to check there? I'm not sure, ma'am, but if it was indeed there and you can confirm it is there on the other 2 combo sets as well, I can get you 2 return labels sent to your printer to be sent back to us. Please do, and maybe next time they would make the user aware that the USB dongle is inserted into the bottom of the mouse. I'll mark that down as feedback for your previous incidents. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, that was everything, thanks. No problem, have a good day, bye. Completely perfect display of all-around failure, from the end user not having the ability to process that by the third package, they maybe should investigate the items and see if the dongle is somehow placed within them, instead of assuming that the sealed merchandise package you were sent was missing a USB dongle all 3 times. And then onto the fact that I share work with coworkers who don't know how to check those places for USB dongles on wireless devices and would rather set the lady up for additional shipments. Good times. I've got to be honest here, I've worked in a few call centers myself over the course of my life, and I can say that a lot of the people that work in those call centers generally aren't qualified to be there, especially if they're working tech support. They're used to just going through step by step on stuff that comes up on the screen to answer any questions or take people through a process, but they've never actually worked with any of this equipment personally themselves. So yes, a situation like this can definitely be frustrating, but it also comes with a sense of satisfaction because you were able to solve the customer's issue and they don't have to call back in again. Our next story today comes to us from Scorp123_CH. Escalation. The folder name is too long. Let's jump right in. For context and to understand what this is about, you have to understand the limitations of NTFS and Windows folder sharing. The maximum allowable file name length on NTFS is 255 characters. This limitation was only recently removed with Windows 10, but chances are that older Windows Server OS releases still have it. That includes folder names and network share names. So if you have a file name like c:/folder/filename.extension, that's fine. If you construct something like s:/myshare/some super long complex path here /more complex folder structure here /totally very long unnecessarily long super duper file name here .extension, then you will run into the file name too long error. So there I was keeping an eye on the support ticket pool when this ticket comes in. Title: folder name is too long. Other information in the ticket: priority urgent, multiple users affected, yes, but it neither tells me which folder or who the users are that are affected. So I could maybe call them and ask them which folder was giving them troubles. Nope. Face desk. How in the world can you forget to add this super crucial piece of information? And the person who forwarded the ticket into my pool, and thus might maybe know more, already went home and isn't reachable anymore. Just great. Fantastic timing. So I take the ticket no matter what. I figure sooner or later the ticket will run into a timeout since it was marked as urgent, and someone who had anything to do with the creation of this ticket might call me then. Yes, good plan. Apart from trying my luck with crystal balls and tarot cards, this is about the only thing I can do at this point. I have like a few 10,000 users and probably several 100,000 folders and millions of files on our storage systems. There's no way I can ever find out which users and which folder the ticket is talking about if they don't tell me. Even if I created a script that scanned all the storage systems for files with long names, it would probably take ages to hit the right files in the right folder. It would be so much faster if they simply told me. But nope, let's just create a ticket that will auto-escalate, and let's not tell the support guy which folder or which user is affected. Forcing support people to search for needles in haystacks is so much fun. Pro tip? No, it's not. And indeed, various timeouts start going off. About 15 minutes after I took the ticket, the ticketing system sends me messages like, "Your action is required. If you do not act upon support request, ticket number, this ticket may be escalated." Fantastic. This is exactly what I want. Hopefully then someone will give me the stupid information I need. So the warnings repeat a few times when after about 1 hour, I see the ticket has indeed escalated, and now it is assigned to one of the escalation managers on the customer side. My hope was, since this escalation manager person is from the same customer, he might know which folder and which users are affected, or at least might be a lot easier for them to find out. Yes, I am naive. Laugh out loud. This was the moment when I noticed that my new best friend, Mr. Escalation Manager, has changed the title of the ticket. New title, the folder name is too long! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, etc. Priority, escalation. Multiple users affected? Yes. Cool. All these big capital letters and all those exclamation marks will totally help me resolve the issue. Pro tip, no, they will not. Facepalm. And then my phone rings. I can see on the display that Mr. Escalation Manager is calling me. Hello, Mr. Poor Support Guy speaking. How may I help you? Dude, what's going on over there? I know you did see the support ticket, so why the hell is it taking so long? Well, the ticket is missing all relevant information. There is nothing I can do. Mr. Escalation Manager screams into the phone. What? The error message is right there. Let me read it for you. The folder name is too long. You can read, right? Yes. Mr. Escalation Manager screams even louder. The effing folder name is too long. Yes. And now if you could use your energy and tell me which folder exactly, that'd be great. Crickets. It doesn't say which folder? Nope. Mr. Escalation Manager is very, very silent all of a sudden. Can you at least tell me which of your users are affected so I could maybe ask them which folder is giving them trouble? It doesn't say which users are affected? Nope. I'll try to find out and call you back tomorrow. Oh, I see. Priority urgent indeed, huh? The next morning, I can see that the title of the ticket was edited again. Title, the folder name is too long. Priority, low. Whoa, what happened to all those capital letters and those oh so ever helpful exclamation marks that underlined the importance of the issue? Gone. It turned out that only one single user was affected, and solving this only took like 5 minutes, and I could have done this without all the drama if only they had bothered to give me crucial information right from the beginning. Some people. Face desk. I think given that I were in the same situation, I would probably just close the ticket and then send it back to them. You know, throw the ball back in their court, let them figure out what's going on. This one kind of reminded me of playing some video games with friends, and they'd randomly shout out, "There's a guy over there behind that tree!" And we're surrounded by trees, like literally everywhere, so I'm supposed to know what behind that tree means? Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our next story today comes to us from Nego0013, the infamous text field rabbit hole. Let's jump right in. This is the tale of technical simplicity and corporate politics. Part 1 Intro. So it was my first week on the job. Nobody had any clue what I was supposed to do, neither did I. You see, there wasn't a support department before me, so I was alone in a dangerous world. Anyway, I get myself to the ops department, introduce myself to the manager, and ask her to show me around. She introduces me to a long-time ops employee that worked pretty much on all projects, around 150 of them. "Hi, how are you?" I say colloquially. He understands, "Hi, what are you doing?" and replies, "Well, I'd be happy to show you." I instantly sit down and get bombarded with the horrible UI and text fields of the operations interface. This field is already filled, we don't change that. The other field needs to be filled with a date. You get the point. After 1 hour, he says, "Done," and opens a large notebook on his desk and starts writing down the project name, fields, forms, starting codes, end hour. "Do you mind if I ask what you were writing down?" "Oh, no problem. It's all work related. I write down everything I do in a workday, all projects, all issues, any relevant information. I have 5 notebooks full from this month alone." Operators had no personal account or computer. They were using virtual boxes with the interface only. "Oh, okay. Will you be willing to show me an issue that you encounter frequently?" "Sure. As a matter of fact, I'm scheduled to work on that project right now." Opens up another interface and brings in the first file. You see, the first 3 fields must be always correct. For a beginner to fill them out wrong, he's fired on the spot. The next 4 fields must be filled out correctly, and you might get a reprimand for mistakes. Now, number 8. As he pauses, I ask, "What about field number 8? I don't believe field number 8 is of any importance actually, but it's grouped together with the high priority fields. It's sometimes auto-completed by the system with info that should go in other fields. Okay. Some supervisors ask for it to be left empty or with whatever info is auto-completed in them. Okay, so nobody, well, look, I have the manual for the project and field number 8 is actually number 9. Look at what it's supposed to contain. Some supervisors ask for field 8 and 9 to be the same. Okay, so there's a workup. No, that's not it. When we get return errors on the other fields, almost everyone stumbles into field 8, and we get reprimanded for being late and breaching SLAs. I know that the error is in another field. I never checked 8. The supervisors rely on me to do the error checks for this project. Wow, there's 120 stations on 30 rows in the hall. Nobody else does errors for this project? No, they do, but they never finish in time. They always get stuck on what to fill in field 8. Part 2, field 8. I pick up my laptop, get my newly minted credentials, hop on the provided virtual machine, which is a monster, containing all of the project's databases. The entirety of the afternoon is spent looking for and at the project structure. Next day, I begin anew. I look into the reports and the project manual fits perfectly with the automated report system. The main table does, however, contain an extra column filled with all types of data, but mostly empty fields. I send an email to the developer listed on the project and ask him about Field 8. He replies immediately, saying that Field 8 was implemented and working in the test environment. Okay, dead end. I need to look at the code. Several days later, I get access to the source codes. Every project has a number in the front, no idea what the number means. Searching returns 3 hits, no possibility to narrow down. I have to check 3 entire projects with the same keyword in order to find the elusive Field 8. Finally, I find it. It's in the code, but the try-catch on it is very lax, and part of it is commented out. So basically, if it finds the relevant info, it will autocomplete the field. It can take strings, it's a non-essential field, it's marked as important, it's linked to the gibberish column that I discovered earlier. I copy the class over and add a comment in it since I wasn't allowed to edit project files. Turn off visibility for the field, return value 1 to column, add this info for next version for review. I document everything, send it to the devs, project management, and ops, job done, go home. Part 3, impact. Next day, my email has 7 replies. The devs won't budge. It's an important field. Project management, we won't allow the change. Operations, impact is due to lack of user training. Customer care, the client is very unhappy with the breached SLAs. This is the only project without major issues that is in the top 5 customer complaints. Please fix the issue. 3 against, 3 don't care, 1 pro. Most people will find other stuff to play with, or maybe grab a coffee. But not me, you see. I can feel when a problem is so annoying and so damaging that people will blame literally everyone else but the problem. Instead of grabbing a coffee, I just went back to operations in the soul-crushing hall where the little people were suffering because of field number 8. I went into the supervisor's office, planted myself in the middle of them, and asked for a complete impact report and all error breaches, all documented corrections ever done on this project. They looked at me and said, "Sure, would you like fries with that?" F, I muttered. You don't have any of those. Look at this place. Even if someone would ask us to do them, we would never have enough time for such reports. Fine, I'll do it myself. Let me know when you get the error corrections and I'll drive over from the main office. 1 month later, I get the impact report. Field 8 was turning a 30-minute task into a 24-hour ordeal for 3 shifts. Money-wise, the project was costing more in penalties due to breached SLAs than it earned. All supervisors and operators assigned to the project lost their performance bonuses. This caused them to ping-pong the project around, so each would lose 1 month of bonus out of 6 months. In short, people were simply taking turns getting effed in the by field number 8, and the company was losing money over it. A lot of money. Part 4, Money and Politics. I hit reply to all and attach my new discoveries to the email. First replies coming in. Dev team. Field 8 is working fine. Project management. Field 8 is essential to the project. Everyone else wants it removed. I get my coffee, wait for the lunch break, and go in the project management office. 8 desks, 1 person. Hi, I'm the new guy from support. Hello, can I help you? She replies. Yeah, I'm looking for whoever was in charge of Project X, number code. By the way, what do those number codes stand for? She shrugs while opening some files. It's a long-time client. This is one of the newer projects from them. It belongs to colleague X. She will know more. Is there a documentation that I might have? Why? Is there a problem? Is there now? I wouldn't know. I like the name of this project. Can you just send me the specs? Nothing special, just the main outlines. I have here some versions. I can't figure out which one is the final one. I'll just send them all over. Have fun. I will. I promise. Thanks, by the way. Nice meeting you. Now, the final piece of the puzzle. She had sent me a gold mine of info for that project. For the sake of sanity, I will explain quickly. Project X was requested 11 months prior, took 1 month from design to enter production, and went through 4 versions. First version was very similar to the one in actual production. Second version was expanded to include more types of files. Basically a double project. Third version was a scale down of second version, and the infamous field number 8 was added as mandatory. Drum roll, version 4 expanded the scope again, and only 20% of project files had info for field number 8. During testing, the customer requested the removal of field number 8 info from reports since 80% of it was not there in the first place. Field number 8 was paid for extra and more since it came in late at V3. Since customer asked for removal of field 8 info from reports and did not specify removal from code, it was left as is, live in production because it was paid for. 9 months in production, huge amounts of money down the drain, and finally, the mystery was revealed. Project management did not want to refund the customer due to technicalities, and devs would not change the project file because they never received the request. Finally, I got a meeting with the heads of each department, pointed out the issue and how to solve it, and field number 8 was removed. Total dev time, 5 minutes. Total test time, 0 minutes. Cost, around $500,000, whatever currency you can think of. I love the part of this where it's listed, it's a non-essential field, but it's also marked as important. We don't need it, but it's very important. I love how it was just left in because it was paid for. That's like going to the mechanic, having them put in a brand new motor, going home and finding that it still drips oil, and then having them say, well, you already paid for it, so we'll just leave it there. Our next story today comes to us from Texas Technician. Printer problems follow her. Let's jump right in. 3 stories about one woman and how every printer she has breaks. Story number 1, this POS copier keeps jamming. Tech gets a call about a copier jamming, goes on site and asks boss where the jams are happening at. Well, the person who reported the jamming is out to lunch, but she said it's coming from the top part of the printer. No worries, I'll run it and get a few jams and fix the problem. Thank you, Tech's first name. The boss has known Tech for ages. Tech proceeds to test the copier, finds no faults, and then charges half price for the call. Tells boss to call if the problem happens again because they couldn't get it to happen. Call back. The copier is jamming again, same problem. Okay, I'll be out there later today to fix it. Tech does the same routine again, finds no faults, and decides not to charge for the service call number 2. Boss was shown that the copier was functioning normally. Callback number 2. This copier is still jamming. Oh, okay, I'll be out later today too. No, I need you here now. You've been here twice and haven't fixed the problem. How long will you be on site? 20 minutes. I'll be there in 5. Small town FYI. Tech gets on site and goes straight to the copier and runs it. 0 problems. Boss comes out and is visibly irritated that Tech has been here twice and not fixed the problem. I cannot get this thing to jam. Does it jam for you? I never use the dang thing. Karen is the one who has the problem. May I talk to Karen? She left right after you talked to her. When she gets back, tell her to call me, please. I need her to run the machine so I can see what's happening when she uses it. I don't see how that will help, but I guess I can. Oh wait, she just pulled up. Hey, Karen, can you come here a minute? Run this copy for me. Karen approaches the copier and is visibly irritated. While mad-dogging Tech, Karen puts the paper in the automatic document feed and presses start. Kaboom! Instant jam. Tech takes the same set of documents, runs them, no jam. What the heck? This copier is a piece of crap. Hey, Karen, can you run this set again? Fine. Karen places the paper in the document tray and proceeds to press start. Stop. What? Let go of the paper, then press start. Explanation. Now, I know what you're thinking. Karen is so dumb that she has been holding the paper, preventing it from feeding, but that is not the case. Karen was holding the butt end of the paper up while copying. On the document tray of the copier, there are sensor flags. The flags detect the length of the paper. The paper being used was legal size paper. Because Karen was holding the paper up, it couldn't sense the paper size and would jam because the paper was too long. Charge me for every call you've been out here for. Karen, I need to see you in my office. Next day, 7:45 a.m. Karen calls me. Hello, how can I help you? Your printer won't work. What problem are you having? It won't let me print a check. What tray are you using? The front one. Oh, I know what's wrong. It's a simple setting. I can walk you through. No, you need to come fix this right now. Ma'am, it's a simple setting. You can change it in less than one. No, this printer is a POS. Come fix it. Ma'am, if I have to come on site to change this, it'll be a minimum charge of $120. Fine, come fix it. Karen hangs up the phone without saying bye. 1 minute later, boss calls me. Hello, this is boss from XYZ company. The new copier is broken, and you're gonna charge me to come fix it? Sir, the copier is not broken. It's a simple setting that, meaning you didn't set it up correctly. When I sell a product, I support it to the fullest. This is unacceptable. You will come and fix this, and I will not be paying for it. Okay, I'll see you soon. 1 hour later, I show up on site. Walk through the door. Boss, Karen, and a few workers are all in the office. I say hello, walk to the copier, touch the screen 3 times, and then tell Karen to please print a check. Checks print without a problem. I look over at boss, and his mouth is open and his eyes are wide. The sudden realization that his secretary is an idiot. I walk over to boss and say, I need to have a word with you, sir. How I was spoken to on the phone this morning was unacceptable. I am so sorry. I was really busy and heard you were going to charge us, and I wasn't referring to you, sir. Your secretary was incredibly rude. We generally give advice to customers on how to change simple settings without charging them. This setting, as you saw, was about as difficult as telling a customer how to change their AC from hot to cold. They are an HVAC service company. I've been working in IT for about 10 years, and I have never been treated like how I was treated this morning. I apologize, and this will never happen again. Thank you for coming out. No worries. If you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to call us. I get back to the office and see Tech. Tech, you won't believe what I had to deal with this morning. There's this lady named Karen at XYZ company, and this morning she called. Wait, I know Karen. I've got a story to tell you. Proceeds to tell me the story from story number 1. Story number 3. Oh, hi. This happens about 3 months after story number 2, in a town an hour away from where the last story occurred. I am pulling up to a bank who's been my customer for about 8 years, and spot boss in the parking lot. He waits for me so we can walk in together and chat. This is the day right after I set up a new copier. Good to see you, yada yada yada. The employees love the new machine. Good to hear, I'm glad. Here's that toner I forgot yesterday. Boss spots someone in the distance. Oh hey, come here for a minute. OP, this is our new employee we hired yesterday. Meet Karen. Karen recognizes me. Oh, hi. Internally, I say F. I visit this bank about twice a quarter. That was the first and last time I saw Karen. I don't think she lasted long, and thankfully didn't have to deal with her. You see, boss at this location has a background in IT and IT security. I never confirmed, but I have a suspicion that he sussed her out pretty fast. Now, down below this one, there was a comment from RPBM. It says, "That's hilarious because by the title, I thought this story was about me. Back in the dark ages, I worked in a call center. The copier on the floor, a decent commercial model, from all accounts, worked perfectly until I started. For the 6 to 7 years I worked on the floor, IT tore their hair out trying to keep it running. It was repaired, traded out with others of the same model, never worked well. I eventually was promoted to a different department, different building. Heard from friends in the call center that the printer is finally working without multiple IT calls. Meanwhile, in the new office, both of the same type of small commercial model, as well as the giant floor model multifunction, now has regular issues. They continue to have problems until the company was sold a couple years later. I never did anything to the printers, just hit print." And OP replied to this comment with, "You're the kind of customer that keeps me employed. Thank you, kind stranger." So going back to the story, first of all, yes, I changed the name to Karen, because $C made me think of something else that probably wasn't appropriate for YouTube. Okay, now let me know in the comments down below because I'm not quite sure what the legalities of this would be, but couldn't OP have said something to the boss of the bank at the end? Like, hey, I've dealt with this person before, and they've screwed up every piece of equipment they've been near. Just keep an eye out. Our next story today comes to us from Alan476. I didn't think that my mom would be my next story, but sadly, she is. Let's jump right in. I am preparing to move in with my mom as her myeloma is getting worse and she shouldn't be driving nor some other tasks. I have to install approximately 10 new network cables in my room, 3 new in the laundry room and office, and rerun the living room. I have a lot of wired network devices, plus I am changing the Wi-Fi to a mesh Wi-Fi. Also, we will have 2 different networks with one carrying all the home automation and cameras. The other will be for entertainment, internet, and printing. I've had to buy all the items needed over the last 3 days. So today I went to Home Depot to get everything that I needed. Keystones, punch-down blocks, a camera, smart plugs, etc. I get everything and head back to the hospital as today is chemo day for her. I pick her up, she is tired but okay. What did you do this afternoon? Went to Home Depot and got the rest of what I needed to change the network cabling. I better have internet when you get done. You'll have internet. In fact, it will be much faster than what you have now. I don't want it any faster. So you want to waste time waiting for the internet to load the next page? Well, no, but I also don't want to go too fast and break something. You won't break anything. You're going to make this too complicated and I won't be able to use it. Don't worry, it'll be easier for you to use. That reminds me, you need to fix my tablet. What is wrong with it now? It won't turn on. When was the last time you charged it? When you went to the hospital to have surgery. So 3 weeks ago. Mind you that she has had this tablet for 6 years. Well, charge it. Your internet broke it. No, it didn't. I haven't done anything yet. Also, my phone is broken too. I can't send a text. Cue a 1-hour tutorial when we got home to refresh her memory about how to send a text. She just switched to iPhone from Android. She wasn't pressing the send button. Tablet was at 1% battery. It is 6 years old, so she needs a new one soon. You need to change the Wi-Fi password. Why? The guy on TV said I should. The Wi-Fi password is fine. Plus, in 2 to 3 weeks, it will get changed anyways. I like the password now. Then why did you just ask me to change it? I didn't ask you to change it. And chemo brain strikes again. I'm going to have fun when I do change it over. P.S. Mom refuses to get higher speed internet. Her one Roku in the bedroom lags and buffers. So no, I have to get my own internet for streaming. Normally the comment section on Reddit is a little bit toxic and, well, just not the best place to be. But every once in a while you get a heartwarming comment like this. It's from Pokey1984 and says, I hope your mom does better soon. If I can offer some advice, I'd recommend investing in some cheap picture frames for notes. She's going to forget things. Leaving notes is the recommended action for the situation, and something that has success is putting them in picture frames and setting them out in appropriate locations. Like, print out a little note with an attractive border or something that says, the Wi-Fi password is this, and put it in a place that's visible from her favorite chair. You're installing hardware in the laundry room, put a frame note on the wall next to it that says, these cables are for OP's work stuff. People tend to take notice of something that's framed. It's a reflexive response to think, that's in a frame, so it must be important. I'm not overly familiar with chemo, but I have worked with family members with dementia. Notes and post-its get disregarded and overlooked. Putting the notes in a frame makes them important. So when mom gets confused as to what these lights or this device is, a frame sign sitting right next to it can at least say, stop, this is important, even if she doesn't quite understand in that moment why it's important. My cell phone number is currently written on the big mirror in the living room because mom keeps forgetting how to access the stored numbers in the house phone, and because she panicked the other day when the power went out and she had to use the corded phone that doesn't have a speed dial feature. She doesn't have a cell phone, she isn't comfortable leaving the house alone these days, and we really can't afford an extra cell phone. So I grabbed an Expo and wrote my number on the mirror so she can't lose it. I've been really proud of my own mom lately. She'll be 70 years old this month. 20 years ago, she was fair to decent at operating tech, and she's had a difficult time keeping up the past few years. Last winter, she developed some serious problems. She's on supplemental oxygen and has to monitor and record all her stats several times a day to watch for worsening heart and lung problems. My sister and I have gotten her a bunch of devices to help with this. The home health place gave her a pulse ox meter, but she was having trouble with it, so we upgraded her to one of those fitness bands. It was approved by her doctor, and I found her a scale that could sync to her tablet because her balance is no good, and she has trouble standing on the scale and leaning forward to read it. I'm incredibly proud of her because she's figured out not only how to use all these things, but she synced them all to our home network and connected those, plus her CPAP, to her doctor's office, where they all send regular updates. And she set them all up by herself with absolutely no help from me or my sister. I mean, she still pages me in the other room to come push the button to reset the router. It only has one button. And the other day, she got the television stuck on a streaming service and couldn't figure out how to switch it back to antenna. The remote has a button that says antenna, but she's doing really well with the rest of the tech in the house. It's a fine line to walk, keeping a balance between helping enough and helping too much. You have my sympathies here big time. Don't forget to take care of yourself too. I'm discovering that's really important. I just want to say I have the utmost respect for OP and also for the commenter down below. Taking the time to look after a family member in need can be very taxing, so remember what the commenter said right at the end. Make sure you still take time for yourself. It's very important and can help you keep your head clear. We drifted a little far away from the Tales from Tech Support, so let's go with one more story from this OP who screwed the pooch. Okay, I just got it. Rush support request, but no details. Let's jump right in. This particular incident happened a few years ago, but I still get similar requests a few times a year. Sales team needs to submit a ticket for sales support. There is even a default template: client name, client number, account number, issue, steps to replicate. Last point usually isn't included, but the first three are crucial to discerning and addressing issues in a timely fashion. Salesperson couldn't be troubled by any of this. Ticket comes in with, "We have a problem with holding company, fix it." I looked up the holding company. They have 4 companies under them, each servicing 2 to 50 clients. I add this to the ticket, and we'll need more information. Who exactly is having what problem? Salesperson says, "Just fix the damn problem. They are an important client. Do it now." They literally put this in the ticket. Okay, I see this is very high priority for you. We'll start reviewing every account for this holding company. It should take about 1 to 3 hours to review each account. And given they have over 150 active accounts, we should have this review completed in 4 weeks once your sales VP authorizes my support VP to only work on this for the next 4 weeks. Even then, without additional information, we may miss the exact issue that spurred this request. If you provide the account number and the issue, we can probably resolve it in the same day. Salesperson doesn't respond for 2 weeks, then follows up with, "What's the status?" You didn't include authorization or more information. The account reviews have not started. It's been 2 weeks, multiple expletives. How could you have done nothing for 2 weeks? He adds his manager and the sales VP to the ticket. I copy and paste my, "Okay, I see this," response to the top of the ticket, bold the sales VP authorizes, and same day parts, and ask, if it was an actual priority, how could you do nothing when we're waiting on you? My desk was about 50 feet from the sales VP's office. The whole floor clearly heard him chew out the salesperson. Blaming support for your own F-up was what I remember most clearly. Formal reprimand was entered into the salesperson's employee file. My VP was in that meeting. She stopped by afterwards. One minor thing, please put the ask next step at the top going forward. By the way, it was awesome how you were both offer solutions, cover our butts, and F you at the same time. She was a good boss. Well, I think that's how every ticket should be handled, honestly. Offer the solution, cover your butt, and say F you at the same time. It would definitely make the help desk day a little more entertaining. Our next story today comes to us from Gambat. Encyclopedia Moronica. R is for receipts are broughten. Let's jump right in. One of the things my current employer decided to do during the period when the whole world was on fire was to bring forward the merging of 2 divisions. It made sense that the divisions would merge. They perform technical tasks for customers, both ad hoc and contracted service work, emergency callouts, and scheduled maintenance. What made less sense was that I was pushed into the supervisor role, a purely administrative position. This made little sense, as I was the only person with the training, experience, and importantly, the certification that allowed me to carry out certain scheduled works. Ensuring this work is continuously up to date is important, as it provides a certain amount of legal cover for our customers. As a result, I was stuck trying to complete a 100% administrative office-bound role while also trying to complete a 100% field-based role. As you might imagine, this did not work. As good as I may be, I cannot be in two places at once. However, after I repeatedly brought this up with my manager, regional, and his manager, national, I eventually managed to drive home my point. You need a business case for new staff, and it better be a good one because we're in a hiring freeze right now due to the merger. How about backfilling the position for the technician that you just promoted into management? Is that a good enough business case? Because I'm consistently doing between 60 and 80 hours a week here, and nobody seems to care. The technician that we just promoted? Who are you talking about? Me. Oh. Okay, yeah, let me get back to you. A scant 6 months later, precisely nothing had happened. In mid-November, the pre-Christmas workload was ramping up hard, so I booked some leave for late January through to mid-February. It was only a couple of weeks, I reasoned. It's more than 2 months, that's plenty of notice, I reasoned. January finally arrived, and 2 days before my much-anticipated leave was due to start, I noticed that it had not yet been approved. I emailed the regional manager, as he was the only one that could approve my leave, and sure enough, a few hours later, I received the email notification that my leave had been approved in the system. On Friday, I set an out-of-office message on my emails, changed my voicemail to reflect the date of my return, and turned my phone off. I did not turn it back on until the day I returned to work. Email from regional manager, subject, urgent, immediate response required, sent 3 days ago. To OP, CC, the entire effing world, including the affected customer. OP, I assigned you a task and you didn't complete it. I need a damn good reason why you didn't do it, and I need it immediately. I was intrigued, I was concerned, I was somewhat dubious about my prospects for continued employment, so I went down the rabbit hole, and I drafted a reply. To regional manager, CC the exact same recipients, including the national manager. I have looked into the issue and spoken with the technician involved. He began filling out job clearance for him, but stopped midway through because he was able to identify from inside his vehicle that the damage exceeded what he would be able to repair, given the parts he had with him at the time. As such, having never left his vehicle or begun barricading off a work area, he did not complete the form to start work. However, it appears that this form was included in the monthly roll-up, despite its incomplete status. Normally, such a form would be identified by the supervisor, myself, during the end-of-month process before it is sent to the affected customer. However, I applied for leave in November, which you approved in January. When you emailed me the forms for review on February 1st, I was already on leave, the leave that you approved less than a week earlier. An out-of-office email was sent to you to remind you that I was on annual leave, the text of which reads, I will not return until at least February 15th. So I did not see your original email dated February 1st with its request to review these forms by February 3rd until today, February 15th. It would appear that you approved my leave but did not arrange to cover for any tasks that would normally be assigned to me during my absence. It would also appear that you did not review the forms for completeness before forwarding them to the affected customer. If you have any questions or require clarification on any of these points, please see the attached emails and screenshots. If you require any further clarifications, please let me know by reply email. The silence was so deafening that I can only assume I was removed from whatever reply emails were sent. The crap raining down from the regional manager only intensified after that. Finally, a mere 9 months after he had originally promised me a replacement, the national manager sent me an email that they had finally begun advertising for a new technician. Once the hiring process was completed, I would no longer need to ever leave the office again. I picked up the phone and told the national manager not to bother hiring a new technician. The regional manager was discussed in depth. The words constructive dismissal were used. I officially stepped down from the supervisor role and returned to full-time technician status. This morning, I received an urgent breakdown call. It was an older piece of equipment, older than some of the staff that operate it, so sudden catastrophic failure was definitely not outside of the realm of possibility. There are also legal obligations to have said equipment running, so while not necessarily critical to operation, it was important to get it fixed or replaced ASAP. I raced out to the customer's site and quickly diagnosed the issue. As I turned the power back on at the wall, one of the staff watching me spoke up. Is that all it was? It's back up now, so it looks like it. I'm so sorry. It must be so annoying to get called out for an emergency when it's actually something so simple. Honestly, I'm happy to do it. I wouldn't do anything else. And that is how I learned to love the stupid, easy faults. Even the tedious and repetitive preventative maintenance. I chose this. I choose this. Because, in short, I love this. I absolutely love managers who think that it's the employee's job to find somebody to work when they're not going to be there. If a manager tells you that you need to find somebody to cover your shift because you can't be in, you look back at them and say, so what exactly do you manage here? Our next story today comes to us from A Silly Face 01. Lady waiting over a year for TV box installation. I get the case. Let's jump right in. So, since April, I've started working for a TV, broadband, phone company after being made redundant and work on the tech team. We work with anything from installations, troubleshooting, and upgrading services. Basically, if you have a problem with any of those, I help you sort it. So, it was 8 a.m. and the first call of the day is a lady who is absolutely furious. At first, it wasn't clear what the problem was, but after reassuring her I wanted to help and that I'd look at the notes on her account, and she can fill me in on what's been missed, she calmed down a bit. A year ago, this lady paid over £100 to get a new TV box installed, only it had never been installed. From the notes and what the lady was telling me, every time an engineer went out, they had an excuse as to why they weren't able to install it that day. Oh, we don't have the right ladder. We aren't trained for this kind of install. We could try and access it from the other property, but we're not insured for that. Why this lady had been left hanging like this made no sense to me, and I promised her I'd get to the bottom of it. She already had TV services with us, but the upgraded box install was the problem, and she was also a carer for a family member, so had enough stresses. So I told her, don't worry about calling us, I will call you and text you updates. The next month was me giving her consistent updates, running around to managers and more experienced staff on install procedures to get the specific ladders and how to get the lady her money back because I couldn't resubmit an install without taking a payment. There was no override. Eventually, I figured it out. I called a specialist team to let them know about the property and have it marked so they knew exactly what equipment they'd need ahead of time. My manager got in touch with higher-ups who confirmed we could give her the money back. Then I could agree the date. I called the customer and told her the situation. We put the wheels in motion, and I triple-checked the order had all the flags it had needed and updated her each week before the install to let her know it was still going ahead, and there were no delays. The day after the install, I called her to ask if everything had gone okay. She was so grateful and said the new engineers we sent were so lovely and made her feel validated in all the problems she's had. She thanked me for helping her and said, I wish I could meet you and give you a hug. I told her that I was glad to get her sorted and that knowing I'd help fix things was more than enough for me. So whenever I have a bad day or a customer is yelling at me that I'm terrible at my job and don't know what I'm doing, which happens, I always think about this lady and how much what I did meant for her and her family. Now, out of the 3 billion jobs that I've had in the past, 8 years of it was spent in call centers. In fact, I met my wife in one of those, so I'd say they worked out pretty well. One thing I always tried to do though was treat the customer like I'd want to be treated if I were the one calling in. You never know how long they've been working on an issue for, or just how frustrated they are with the company itself. They might be wordy, they might be angry, but the bigger thing is, what can we do to get that situation resolved? It sounds like OP thinks the same way, and the company that OP works for is very lucky to have them there. Our next story today comes to us from Family Phantom. I hit reset password, but I am not receiving any reset emails. I have tried nothing and am out of ideas. Let's jump right in. This is the freshest, hot off the press story I've ever posted. This happened just 5 minutes ago. It took my brain a solid 60 seconds to reboot since it needed some firmware updates to handle the new levels of either laziness or ignorance consistently displayed by my users. Love them. So I got a simple ticket on Friday from my least favorite user. Is this email legit or no? It was a phishing test email sent by our sysadmin to gather data. Read, trick users into clicking. On how many of our users are failing security tests? I inform user of this and verify no links were clicked and tell her she's safe to delete it and good job for passing. Except she then reopens the ticket with the same question, but with a different email to ask about. This one says she needs to take some required security training. For reference, if you click the link and fail the test, you have to take security training that really drills home the simple mantra: do not click links from emails you do not recognize. I nicely confirm it is a legitimate email with a link to security training. I know, the irony of requiring links to be clicked to be yelled at for clicking links is not lost on me, but no one listens to me when I pointed it out, and kick myself for believing her that she didn't click anything. I forgot Rule 0, and for that I suffer, which leads me to the following exchange. I attempted to log in and submit a request to do so and never received an email. I clicked the link in the email she received, click reset password, and then entered her email and confirmed with our mail filter that it accepted the reset password instructions email. Did you receive one now with password reset instructions? Weekend passes. I assume she did the thing that she was asking for when I sent it and just forgot to let me know. It happens. Monday arrives. She replies to the above email. I did, but after I left it for the day, so it has expired. Please send again and let me know when you do. Thanks. I repeated the above steps, which are fully in her power to do, but hey, it takes 2 seconds to do, so I don't mind. I also confirmed for the second time that the email was delivered and even made a note of the time. I went through your link and hit password reset again, so it should send something to you. OP, it is asking for a password. I do not have one. I hit reset password, but I'm not receiving any emails. Odd, it says it was delivered at 9:06. Can I hop in and hunt for the email? Insert screenshot from mail filter, confirming the exact moment it was delivered. Half an hour passes. I was on the telephone. Yes, please hop in. Like the diligent little IT slave I am, I hop into her PC and pull up her inbox. And wouldn't you know it, the very first email at the top of her mailbox is an email that literally reads in all caps, password reset instructions. I open the email, click the link, which of course takes me to a screen for the password to be reset. I hop out of her computer, send. Looked like the email was right there on top. You should be able to set up a new password here. And then promptly afterwards, my brain shut down. Sometimes I just need to turn off and on again. Today is not a good Monday and I hate it here. Final notes, this was an easy ticket overall. Not a single piece of brain power was used to resolve this issue. If all my tickets were this easy, I'd have the best job in the world. However, it seems my users insist on making my job more difficult than it should be. I was totally thinking this was going to go on a little bit longer with another ticket coming back saying, well, it expired again because it took me too long to come up with a password. OP, I hope you're also covering your butt in these tickets. Take a screenshot of that email sitting right at the top of her inbox and make sure it's added into that ticket. Our next story today comes to us from Deterministic Links, the wonders of wireless input devices. Let's jump right in. While this sub originally brought me to Reddit, I so far never considered to post any of my stories. Well, I guess it's time to change this. When this happened, I was a student tech support in one of the university buildings, responsible for keeping everything running. May it be to ensuring updates were done or by solving issues. One of the secretaries called in and explained that her mouse and keyboard were acting up. I promised I would be right over and, on my way there, was already less than happy. This woman was not exactly the epitome of friendly behavior. I got in, smiling, and asked her to show me the problem. Sure enough, her keyboard and mouse acted erratically, only accepting some of the inputs. Well, lucky for me, she also kept a few spare parts to hand them out to students or workers. I picked a wired mouse from her stash and went to work on the issue. The mouse and keyboard were both Unify technologies. Those require a special driver and the corresponding software. As this was Windows and from time to time drivers got hiccups, I reinstalled those. Nope. Okay. Maybe the software had a problem? Another reinstall and no. As I tried these solutions, the secretary stood beside me, already visibly annoyed that I dared to take a few minutes to solve her issue. Furthermore, she was complaining that it couldn't be this or that because the setup worked yesterday. My explanation that from time to time errors creep into a computer setup fell on deaf ears. As my previous attempts had gone fruitless, I dived under her desk to see if the USB connector was either damaged or not seated properly. To my surprise, there were two of them above each other. I turned around to inquire if she always had the mouse and keyboard. She told me she had had a wired keyboard until recently, but because the wireless mouse works so well, she had asked for permission and then ordered a wireless keyboard for her workstation. I got up and explained that her mouse and keyboard were from the same company, which offered a special technology to reduce the number of occupied USB slots. The mouse and keyboard could and should be operated with just one connector, as the software I had just reinstalled was able to recognize both of them and their inputs. I went on to say that, most likely, her issues were created by the fact that both connectors were trying to pick up on both signals, which could only result in communication chaos. I would remove one of the connectors and put it away as a backup. Looking straight into my eye, she told me, "No, that's not possible. You can't do that." I blinked, visibly irritated. "Excuse me? It's not possible. It worked like this since I had the keyboard. If you remove a connector, it won't work anymore. It must be something else. Look for something else." I smiled a little, forced smile. "I'm certain this is causing the problem. It will work with just one connector. That is actually a sales argument for this technology. I'll just remove one connector. You can store it as a spare." "No, that's not possible. Look for something else." I sighed and took a step back. "You called me as the tech support because you did not know how to solve the problem. These systems are created so only one USB connector is needed. I'm certain this is causing the issue, thus, this is my next step to try and resolve it. Either you let me try this, and if the issue persists, I will look for another solution, or I'm happy to let you solve your issue, as I cannot provide you with any further assistance." She was not happy, but she grumbled something about letting me try, but she'd dare me to find a solution once that failed. Then, she walked into the adjacent coffee kitchen. I dove under the desk again, pulled out one of the connectors, ran the connecting calibration once more, and tested the keyboard and mouse. Both worked as expected. She was still making coffee. I used the time to put the wired mouse back to where it belonged, set the wireless connector into the packaging of the keyboard, and then showed her everything worked. I said my goodbyes and went back to my office. A minute after arriving back at my desk, I get a steaming, nearly screaming call from her that I couldn't just steal her wired equipment. With an annoyed but calm tone, I informed her that I had put the mouse back to where I had taken it from. She muttered, "Oh," and hung up. And I was, once more, happy my boss knew how complicated the employees could be, so he had told us to be stern. There's a couple things to say here. One is to never tell a user that you are certain of what their problem is, because if you're incorrect, it's going to make you look hugely incompetent. They already think you are, so don't give them the chance to prove that you are. I do quite enjoy how you handled the situation though, telling her that you could solve the issue for her, or she could try and solve it herself. But you're doing your job, and it's what you're paid to do. There's gotta be times though that you just want to say, "Yep, I'm done, you figure it out yourself, bye-bye," and turn around and walk away. Our next story today comes to us from Katha757. Sorry for fixing their problems. Let's jump right in. This is a story about a time I literally saved a hospital's network and got in trouble for doing it. I will do my absolute best not to embellish facts, but bear in mind this was a bit ago and exact dialogue has been lost to my not so great memory. Also, I'm terrible at formatting on Reddit. Sorry if this looks terrible. Also, sorry for the length. This is going to be a long story. Backstory: late 2019, I started my networking career in my first big boy networking job as an L2 network engineer. I worked for a medium-sized tech company in a different department prior to this new position. But after expressing my interest and lots of personal training, I managed to land a job in their tiny networking department. I was ecstatic. Networking was exactly what I wanted to do, and this was my foot in the door. The pay was absolutely abysmal, and management was overbearing, but it'll look great on the resume. At this point, I was nearing a decade at this company and had received numerous awards for multiple different things. I was well known and well liked. Getting the job was a piece of cake once I was ready. One thing worth mentioning is that this tech company had offices all over the continent, one of which was in my city. This wasn't the headquarters, mind you, but just a satellite office for service desk. I worked from home for many years without issue, but after a while, I started to get cabin fever and asked if I could, at my own discretion, pop into the office occasionally to get out of the house. This was approved, and I set up a desk at the office for whenever I felt like stretching my feet. Then I got this networking position. There were no networking coworkers in my office, just little old me. My boss was in another city far away. You might be thinking, OP, that must mean you can continue your work from home arrangement, right? You're not missing anything at the office. Nope, my direct boss had to drive an hour to his office because he was part of management, and if he had to suffer, so did I. I had to drive to the office just because. Although this didn't sit well with me, it was what it was. This just shows what kind of mindset management had. Fast forward to mid-2020. COVID is in full swing and hospitals are starting to struggle. A couple of months prior, we had signed up a tiny hospital in a rural town about an hour away. One of the services we offered was network monitoring and remediation. And because I was the only network engineer within 500 miles, it was my responsibility to do stuff. They were extremely vague about what I would be asked to do and what we could dispatch a field tech to do, whatever gave them more control over me. Story: 3 p.m. I was starting to relax as the day was just about over, thoughts dancing in my head about what I'm going to do after work. Spoiler alert, nap. Then we received a P1 alert. The domain controller at the hospital went offline. More P1s start rolling in. Core switch stack went offline and took everything else with it. We received dozens of P1s for every device, and immediately a P1 bridge was spun up. Recognizing this was more than likely a network failure, and representing the network department, I jump on the bridge. Boss and I jump on, and we start our inspection to determine the scope of the outage. Nothing on the inside of the firewall is responding, period. Looking over our documentation and diagrams, it's evident the core switch had some sort of failure, but we weren't sure how bad this was. We got site contact on the line and verified the server room had power and the devices were powered. Everything checked out, and it was decided I needed to go on site. I pack up my tools, jump in the truck, and drive the hour out there. By this point, it's 4 a.m. 5 p.m., I roll into the parking lot and walk inside. I make my way to the server room and meet with site contact. I do a quick inspection of the equipment and everything is lit, but one thing I notice immediately is every single port that was enabled is flashing concurrently and consistently. Red flag. I set up my laptop and call into the bridge and let them know I'm on site. Let the troubleshooting begin. While boss and big boss are talking about potential issues and trying their best to think about troubleshooting steps, I'm already working. First thing I check is the firewall downlink. Checked out. I plug the switch back into the firewall and patch my laptop directly into the switch. When I pinged the switch management IP, it was dropping half the pings, and the time was all over the place. A couple of milliseconds up to several seconds each. This didn't make sense, and mentioned my findings to the people on the bridge. My boss goes quiet for a couple of seconds. Are you working off to the side? Yes, they need to get working, right? Shouldn't I be troubleshooting? Isn't that why I'm here? No, you're there as an extension of us. We need you to follow our exact instructions. Do not do anything on your own without us knowing about it first. I should mention that my cell phone was on speaker, so I could use both of my hands to type commands. Site contact, the technical director for the hospital, was sitting next to me helping me troubleshoot. He wanted this thing fixed and fixed now. He was a very patient and nice person, but there was a lot of pressure to get this working, and he was happy up until this point with what I was doing. When he heard my boss say that, he lost his crap. I put my phone on mute. Did they just say they don't want you to do anything? Sorry you had to hear that. I have no idea what the issue is, but I'm very confused why they don't want me troubleshooting this. That is completely unacceptable. How the hell are you supposed to help getting this working if you aren't allowed to do anything? Why are you even here then? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't care what they say. Let's keep going. F them. Eventually, they started giving me troubleshooting commands, notably commands I already ran, and with the info I provided back, they determined the first switch in the core was faulty and needed to be replaced. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that this switch stack wasn't actually stacked. It was a daisy chain switch, 1 to 2, 2 to 3. Unfortunately, it looks like the first switch is malfunctioning and not passing traffic properly. It'll need to be replaced. We'll go ahead and check on the warranty info and see if we can get one overnighted. At this point, this did not jive with what I was witnessing, but I had a hunch of what it could be. I hadn't witnessed one of these in the wild yet, but it might be. Hey guys, I need to put you on hold for a second. I muted my mic and talked directly to site contact. Look, I've got a sneaking suspicion that the switch is fine, but there could be something else going on called a broadcast storm. There is a really easy way to determine whether this is true or not, and what's the worst thing that could happen? We take down your network? We both got a good laugh out of that one. Yes, let's do it. What do we have to lose? What do we do? Start unplugging patch cables until we start getting replies back to my pings. If they stabilize, then it's a broadcast storm. If they don't, then this switch is probably faulty. I start the persistent ping and we start unplugging cables while I keep an eye on the ping. We get to the very last cable and, up until this point, we had no luck, but once we unplugged the SFP module, the switch magically stabilized. With a smirk on my face, looks like we found the cause of the issue. Your switch is fine, but we have to find where the loop is. Where does this fiber module go? That goes to an outbuilding with offices. I've got keys, we can go over there. Can we isolate it and get the hospital back online? Yes, let's plug these cables back in and everything should be okay very quickly once the APs power back up. By this point, I've been on hold for maybe 2 minutes. I unmute my mic. Hey guys, we found the cause of the issue. The switch is fine. This is a broadcast storm. A broadcast storm? What the hell is that? Is that even a thing? That doesn't sound real. Yes, it's a real thing and it's not good. OP, why do you think that? I explained my troubleshooting steps. Okay, yeah, that sounds like a broadcast storm to me. Go to the offices with site contact and see if we can locate the loop. Stay on the line with us so we can guide you. Yeah, okay. I roll. We verify everything in the hospital has started coming back up, and off to the other building we go. We go through several IDFs until we isolate the loop to a single section of offices that the site contact didn't have a key to. Disconnect them. If they effed up, they can deal with no internet until I can get in there and find out what this loop is. We disconnected the offices and hooked up the outbuilding back to the network and verified everything was good. At this point, it's midnight. We verify everything is good and I leave. Got home at 2 a.m., back up at 8 a.m. to get back to work, with the expectation of at least a high five. Boss and big boss, OP, we need to have a word about your actions last night. Sure, what's up? You didn't include us in any of your troubleshooting. We were effectively in the dark. We told you earlier that we didn't want you doing anything without us telling you. You went rogue. I went rogue? I saved them several $1,000s instead of replacing a switch that was perfectly good. We got their network up in a fraction of the time it would have had I followed your directions. What exactly did I do wrong there? None of that matters. You're too inexperienced to be making these decisions and taking troubleshooting in your own hands. You made you, me, and boss look very unprofessional. You need to learn to follow directions. Okay, sorry for fixing their problems. Unfortunately for them, site contact was extremely happy with my performance and extremely pissed at my bosses. His email said as much to the account executive and bosses. He called me up personally and thanked me for my hard work that night and gave an update on what he found. The next morning, he heard complaints of no internet in those offices. He went over and found an idiot had plugged a patch cable from one wall port into another, no idea why. He lit that employee up about the $2,000 bill he was about to receive. He was pissed when I offhand mentioned that I was reprimanded for fixing their issues. This is a perfect example of management. Now, I'm no networking specialist, but I know that loop prevention can be enabled on most switches, so it makes me wonder why it wasn't done in this situation. I mean, users are gonna use, so you gotta build your network correctly. One user doing something stupid that brings down your whole network seems like a really big problem that could have been avoided. Our next story today comes to us from the Lightning Count 1. Password working exactly as intended. Let's jump right in. Got a call today from a user who used the self-service password reset site, but now is unable to log into a vendor program. This vendor program does not use the same password as 80 creds, so simple call, right? Yeah, no. Thanks for calling IT, this is OP, how can I be of assistance? Yeah, I reset my password on the password reset website, but now my vendor program won't let me log in. Are you trying your new password you just set on the password site? Yes, that's why. The vendor program password does not change when you reset your Citrix email password. You will need to use your old password for it. 10 seconds of silence. My new password still is not working for vendor program. I guess what I said did not come through. Sorry about that. Your vendor program password does not change when you reset your Citrix email password. You will need to use your old password for that. 30 seconds of silence. Hello? Yes, sorry, 1 second. Typing. Yeah, my password is still not working on vendor program. Your old password? No, my new. Is my phone cutting out? No, you sound just fine. Yeah, so your vendor program password does not reset when you update your Citrix or email passwords. Try the old password you had for vendor program before you reset your Citrix password today. Long silence. Oh, that worked. Why did the password I reset not work for vendor program and I have to use this old password? Audible exasperated sigh. Because vendor program has its own credentials that do not change when you reset your Citrix email password. I will give you exactly one guess as to what happens next. So why did I have to use my old password? Is something wrong with my account? No. I guess I'm failing to properly explain this and I apologize for that. When you reset your password today, you used this website, correct? Gibbs password reset website. Yes. Okay, that only resets the intranet, email, Citrix, and our company branded programs. It does not change these 3 vendor programs' passwords. So when you reset your password on Password Site, it does not change the vendor program password. A full minute of silence with me repeatedly trying to get her attention. Oh, sorry, I'm here. So what's wrong with my account? Nothing. Your password is working exactly as intended. I hung up the phone and wrote it up as, helped user get into vendor program using her old password. She either was not listening or simply failed to understand that vendor program and AD were separate entities, terminated call, and cried myself to sleep. No one called to complain, and we never heard back from her today. That user is the kind of person that looks at you and says, yeah, I'm not a computer person, as if we couldn't tell. Just to wrap this one up though, right at the end it says that they didn't get another call from that person today. What about tomorrow? Our last story today comes to us from Tubus61. New boss, new hell. Let's jump right in. Many years ago, I was part of the Unix tech support team managing a set of high-end IBM Power servers, P595s. Our team leader was a cool guy who was a real IBM geek. He was also not confrontational in any way. The company employed a new IT director, and in the way these things always go, he decided to stamp his authority on the data center and called in contractors for an audit of the systems. This happened to be on the week our team lead was heading off on vacation. The auditors turned up and the IT director told us to hand over all the root passwords for the systems as the auditors had scripts they needed to run. Everything went well until just before the end of normal hours. The auditors kicked off their script on a server and the terminal hung. There were mutterings, a shrug of shoulders, and a comment of, "It sometimes does that, it will be a while running, just kick off the others and we can grab the results in the morning." They then ran their scripts on the remaining servers, noted the hanging sessions, disconnected, and left for the day. Then the phone started ringing. Systems were unavailable and customers were complaining. We couldn't get logged into any of the systems. All of the connections we tried just timed out. The crap well and truly hit the fan. And eventually, a call was received from our team lead along the lines of, "My phone is going mad with alerts, what's happening?" A brief explanation was given and we tried to gain access while he guided us on the phone. Nothing. Eventually he said, "Hang on, I'll be there in around 90 minutes. Apparently, he went to the airline desk, rescheduled the family flights, booked his family into a hotel, and then hired a car to drive back to the data center. What had happened was the auditors had run their scripts on the virtual I/O servers on an LPAR partition server. In the heading of the scripts was a note specifically saying, "Do not run this script on a VIO server." The script caused a component of the VIO code to panic and drop the VIO server. Not an issue if you have a redundant VIO server, but big issue if you run the script on every VIO server one after the other. Instead of looking at why the first session crashed, the auditors just carried on and ran their script on every VIO server in the data center. Every partition lost access to both networks and storage, and we uncovered another issue which was preventing us accessing the VIO server console from the hardware management console. Our team leader left his family at an airport hotel, drove over 90 minutes from the airport, and then spent a good 4 hours fixing the issues, documenting root cause before he left to go back the 90 or so minutes to the airport and fly out a day late on his vacation. I learned 2 things that day. First, some managers put in charge of tech support teams should never have any responsibility given to them. And second, very few companies truly recognize the value of the quiet, unassuming people who have exceptional technical expertise and dedication. The team leader left the company about a year later, and to the best of my knowledge, was never rewarded for his efforts that night. Ah yes, outside experts are always better than the people who have been using that equipment forever. Now OP, your boss let themselves get screwed in this case though. If they came back to do work and pushed back their vacation, that's something they should have taken up with their higher-ups and gotten compensated for it. Absolutely. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments down below, and if you'd like to see more like this, of course, let me know that as well. I thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.